someone make sure they're on mute, please? Thank you, Chair. We are now live.
Thank you. Welcome back, members and officers. Can we have a roll call, please, Wendy?
Yes, thank you. Councillor Bloxham.
Present.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Present.
Councillor Coleman.
Present.
Councillor Davey.
Present.
Councillor De Sarum.
Present.
Councillor Gazzard.
Present.
Councillor Howe.
Present.
Councillor Key.
Present.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Present.
Councillor Pook.
Present.
Councillor Pratt. I'll come back to Councillor Pratt. Councillor Skinner.
Present.
Councillor Whibley.
Present.
Councillor Woodward.
Present.
Councillor Ragg.
Present.
And do we have Councillor Pratt? Okay, we don't appear to have Councillor Pratt, so hopefully he may join us later. Okay, I think we'd better make a start then. Right, agenda item 9, application 2015-04. It's a major outline application for land opposite Barrack Farm, Exeter Road, Ottery St Mary, and that's on page 80. I'd like to welcome Lewis Carr, Christopher Bargman, Colin Butler, Matt Sullivan, Jane Hulse, Naomi Garrick, and Ruth. Now, I'm not sure how you pronounce this, Angrui, or is it Ingrui?
Not as French as it looks. It's Ingruil. It's Channel Islands.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you. The applicant, John Williams, and Ottery St Town Council, Councillor Richard Copus, Devon County Councillor Claire Wright, and the ward member, Councillor Vicky Jones, and I think Councillor Peter Faithful is here. Councillor Jeff Pratt wants to speak on this as well. And I believe we have a statement from Councillor Jess Bailey, which will be read out because I understand she can't be here. So over to you, Mr. Rose, to present your report, please.
Madam Chairman, could I just make a comment, please, just before you start?
Right.
It's really quite important if Councillor Pratt wants to speak that he's here for the meeting. Otherwise, he'll be. I hope he's in.
I agree.
I hope he's in. I hope he's in because it's going to be very awkward and it's going to cause a ruckus, as you well know. So we really need.
That's why I mentioned at the beginning that everybody should be here.
He won't be able to speak if you start.
Can somebody give him a call? Do you think? Please?
Can we just give him a minute, give him a call and get it online. And if he doesn't, then you have no choice, do you? But you tried your best.
That's fair.
Yep.
Keeping me well in check, Councillor Skinner.
Well, I just don't want any hiccups.
No, you're quite right. No,
you could just see a hiccup, can't you? And I just don't want it.
Oh yes, that's the reason for me mentioning it at the start. Is somebody giving him a call? Sarah, are you?
Yeah, Sarah, could you give Councillor Pratt a call for me, please?
Yes, I certainly will do. Thanks.
He's now in the meeting. Oh, good.
Just wait for him to connect, and I'll
Yeah.
just check he can hear me okay. Councillor Pratt, can I just confirm you can hear us and you're in the meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you hear me, Vicky? Wendy?
Yes,
Yes,
loud
we
and
can
clear.
hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an outline application. Access only is being considered in detail for 150 dwellings, a 210 space primary school, new roundabout access off Exeter Road, with changes to a secondary access of Cadhay Lane.
Okay, it's all right.
So this is the site. So you can see it in red here, outlined. So we've got the Exeter Road along the bottom, and you can see the area there where the new roundabout we provided. We've got the King's School here, tennis courts, Cadhay Lane running up there. So this is the extent of the site at the edge of Ottery. And this is it in aerial form. So you can see the pitch here, the tennis court, school, Cadhay Lane coming up, and it's these fields that in here where my cursor are, as I say, with an access in here off a roundabout. And we've got an indicative layout with the application. So the application's before members, because it's a departure from the local plan, and it's contrary to comments from the ward member and from the parish council. And you'll see from the report that there's a significant number of representations, approximately 132 letters in objection to the application. So you've got the indicative layout on the screen there. So none of this is indicative only. It's not for approval. All we're dealing with is the principle of development, and this sketch shows 150 dwellings on the site and the space for the 210 place primary school. It's a 10-hectare site, agricultural land at the moment, with a small area of woodland on this corner of the site. So there's two accesses proposed. You can see on this screen a new roundabout access in off of Exeter Road, so that you can see that will breach the hedge there and also give farm access off this arm. And this will also slow down the traffic on this road entering into and out of Ottery. And there's also a change to, or proposed, is the junction here with Cadhay Lane. So at the moment, the lane runs north-south up this way, and the proposal is to have the main road coming in and then cutting through the site. So the junction will be put on the existing road. So this will become the through route. The idea being this is to get traffic coming down Cadhay Lane to go through the site, join the roundabout, and then either go into Ottery or onto the A30. And that will potentially reduce the traffic that's on Cadhay Lane. It would also make this quite a difficult right turn out of the site because the junction will be here. So the road will go that way with the junction on the existing arm. And you'll see from the photos I'll put up in a bit that the site slopes down from Exeter Road down up towards the top of that screen there. So the application also includes 30% affordable housing, so that's 45 units. And the application is put forward as a relocation of Tipton St John Primary School. And as it says in the report, that primary school is in flood zone 3 and has dated buildings. And because of the location in the flood zone, there's been proposals or desire to move the school and relocate it for a number of years. The applicant puts forward the case that a number of those students from Tipton already get transported to Tipton St John from Ottery, and that trend is only can continue to an extent that you then get the majority of the pupils to the school will be Ottery residents anyway, and therefore regardless of the fact that they struggle to find any sites in Tipton, they're saying that Ottery is a better location because the majority of the children going to the primary school will be from Ottery. You'll also see from the report that the applications come forward with housing because there's just over a £5 million funding shortfall. So the Devon County's the Education Authority have a couple of £1 million for the school, but they don't have the extra money needed to build the new school. So they put forward this application on the basis they get consent, they sell the land for housing, and the money that they get from the sale of that housing then pays for the new school. Viability information submitted with the application shows that it would be viable with 175 dwellings at 30% affordable, but the applications come in at 150 at 30% affordable, with the Devon County making up the roughly £500,000 shortfall. Although I should make clear at the start that the policy position here is for 50% affordable housing, not 30% being offered. And if I just move through the slides, so this is the existing access of Cadhay Lane. So this is where the road will come in and sweep round to the right and become the main road, and the junction put in on this corner. This is it. So these are the views up from the existing gate into the field. So this is the site going up into this corner, up here, over the hedge and into the field here. So you can see the slope of the land and the fact that it's an agricultural use. And also adjacent to the site is this equipment to do with Exeter Airport, which remains untouched. And then we've got the views from Exeter Road. So the site is up here beyond the houses, behind this hedge. So in here with a roundabout provided up the top here. So you can see how visible the development will be from Exeter Road. And that's a view back down just as you come past that hedgerow, looking down into Ottery. And these are images from the landscape and visual impact assessment. So this is from the east side of Ottery, and the site is here. So it's these fields here. So you'll start to see from these images that the site is on a hillside. So development will be prominent. Again, we're talking about these fields here. This view is from Cadhay Lane looking southwest. And this is again from higher up parts of Ottery, looking back across from the east to the west, and we're talking about these fields up here that you can see in the middle of the photograph. And then again, when you get very distant views from the east, we're talking about these fields here. So you can see, you can judge for yourself, members, how prominent the proposal will be. So in terms of the principle, the site's outside of the built-up area boundary from Ottery. Strategy 24 of the local plan allocates part of the site for the expansion of King's School primary school, but not the site shown on the indicatively for the school. So in effect, this area of the site here is shown in the local plan for the expansion of the school or for a new school. But there's no residential provided as part of that application. So there's no local plan support for the housing scheme or the location of the school as indicatively shown, and also the proposals contrary to the local plan in arguably in that it's only providing 50% affordable. And there's no policy support in the neighbourhood plan either. So the proposals contrary to both the neighbourhood plan and the local plan in terms of the location of houses and development of the houses are indicatively shown on that school site. And this obviously weighs against the proposal. But as members will be aware, you need to consider whether there are other material considerations that outweigh those concerns. And you'll see from the report, the applicants put forward the case that there is a need to relocate Tipton Primary School, which isn't disputed by officers, and the reasons for that are outlined in the report related to flood risk and the condition of the school. They've said that 50% affordable housing isn't viable. But 45 units in itself at 30% is a benefit from the scheme. The scheme has been through a viability appraisal that's been assessed in-house and independently by Plymouth City Council's viability team to demonstrate that that is all that the scheme is likely to be able to provide, although we would recommend an overage clause should the land be sold for more than is required to pay for the school. And Devon County, the applicant, is saying that this is the only way to provide the school and the facility that's required because they don't have the funding to purchase a piece of land in Tipton where they can't find any, or elsewhere in Ottery without having the housing to subsidise it. So members here have got to balance the harm from the proposal against the benefits. Those benefits being the benefits of being able to provide the school on the site for the pupils, the housing benefits in terms of provision of housing and provision of the affordable housing. But you need to balance that against the lack of planning policy support, the loss of this land from agricultural use, and the visual impact of the proposal. And I showed you those slides. This site is visible from a number of viewpoints around the town, albeit viewed in association with Ottery, but starting to go up those hill slopes. So obviously members need to judge whether they find that wider visual impact acceptable, or if it's outweighed by the benefits of the proposal. Just a couple of other points. You'll see in the report that there was originally a contribution request from the NHS for financial contribution to mitigate the development and the impact from those houses, but you'll also see at the last minute they withdrew that request, so they're no longer asking for that. And in terms of amenity, there's no concerns about amenity impacts to adjoining residents. We can make sure at reserve matter stage that there's suitable distances, ecology has been adequately assessed and addressed, and there's no flood risk concerns. And Devon County have been involved from the highway perspective to ensure that the junctions and the details here in terms of the roads work adequately, and have carried out a road safety audit on the junctions proposed. So in summary, there's no local plan or neighbourhood plan policy support for this proposal. It is a departure, there's a loss of agricultural land, and there will be a visual impact from it. But that needs to be balanced against those other material considerations of the provision of the school, and Devon County advising there's no alternative to this. The 150 dwellings and the construction and economic benefits that will come from that, the benefits from 30% affordable housing, and the lack of any other wider harm that's been identified. Officers have concluded that the benefits from the school and the dwellings and the affordable houses provide social and economic benefits that outweigh that lack of policy support, the loss of agricultural land and the visual impact, but it is a very finely balanced decision. So the recommendation is for approval with conditions and a Section 106 agreement to secure the affordable housing and HABREG's contributions and an overage clause. If members are minded to approve the scheme, I'd also like agreement to a small change to condition 6 as written, to make sure it's clarified the wording that only relates to the access and not any roads within the site, and to condition 16 just to clarify that there will be no development allowed at the reserve matter stage within the easement of the watercourse that runs along the edge of the site. Thank you. You're on mute, Councillor Agg.
Could you just clarify something for me? It's not relevant now. It's to do with the NHS because they've withdrawn their request. But it refers to University Hospitals of Leicester. Was that
yeah, I think that's a cut and paste error on their part. It relates it relates to Exeter, but I think it looks like they've cut and pasted from another letter. Yeah.
Okay, I wondered if that might be the case. Okay, thank you. Right, now we have the objectors. Lewis Carr, you have 3 minutes to speak, and you'll be advised 30 seconds before the end that your time is coming up. Do you like to speak?
Yeah, can everybody hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. Something needs to be done about Tipton St John Primary School, and with 2 of the 3 fields protected for community and educational use, there may be less opposition if this was being proposed. The building of 150 new houses that contravene just about every part of the local and neighbourhood plans is what's causing most of the opposition. Should this application be approved, it already contains everything needed for judicial review to overturn the decision. The committee report has pages of objections and reasoning for rejection, followed by even more pages of twisting of words and outright lies to try and justify an opinion that was clearly predetermined. An expert with over 40 years experience reviewed the viability report and was staggered by the poor quality. The report was hugely biased, being carried out by a party that is very definitely not impartial or independent. They forecast a huge deficit even before the £250,000 contributions to local service and habitats. The Environment Agency has repeatedly called for more detailed assessments, which haven't been done, and for a large area of the 3rd field to be retained for flooding of Thorn Farm Brook. This scheme will only worsen the flooding in Ottery. The traffic survey is flawed, being conducted during half-term, whilst the country was heavily locked down to COVID-19. Of course, there was no traffic. Have you seen it on a normal morning? Increased traffic on Barrack Road and Cadhay Lane will increase the risk to pupils at King's School. Protected species of wildlife and environmental surveys aren't even complete. There are badges on the gardens of Cadhay close houses, so there must be sets in the fields. This scheme is being touted as the only way that Devon County Council can fund it. But how are they funding the new Mrs. Ethelston CE primary in Upline, approved in early October 2020? The Church of England has rejected any funding sources that might change their control over the school. Working with Devon County Council, they have chronically failed to invest in the current school to such an extent that the life has been sucked out of the village of Tipton St John, and now they want to rip out what's left of the heart of the community. East Devon District Council must demonstrate they can act impartially to the applicant, Devon County Council, but have failed to do so at every stage. This downright deceitful application, full of holes that stomps all over the local and the neighbourhood plans, and for what? So that the protected, publicly owned land can be sold to a property developer who will build as many shoebox houses on the land as possible and move on. How can anyone involved with this application sleep at night? Whether you work for the council or sit on it, you need to understand the level of objection to this scheme. Council officials, you were elected by the public to represent their interests. By approving this application, you're failing your task at the very most basic of levels. We're not looking for a decision to approve with conditions. We're not looking to see an amended version in a few months. We're looking for the officials we elected to use the protections in the neighbourhood and localhood plans we voted for to stop this once and for all. See through the corruption, recognise the will of the people who trusted you with their votes, and you will sleep soundly tonight. You may be able to tell by my shaky voice that I am particularly angry about this.
Yeah.
And I would urge them to get rid of that stupid plan that isn't even remotely indicative of what could be built or would be built off everybody's screens, because it's showing
Chairman,
that's not
he's
Mr.
had his
Carr.
time, for goodness sake.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Carr. Mr. Bargman.
Yes, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak at about this planning application. I've also submitted a letter as a backup to what I'm about to say, which provides a little more detail. 3 minutes is a very short period of time. This application drew a large number of objections. These were wide-ranging in their scope and their focus. I urge that these are not overlooked. They were all made for very good reasons. In particular, as the previous speakers said, that the development is outside the local and neighbourhood plans. It's on agricultural land. It's outside the built-up area boundaries. There's a dangerous precedent that's going to be set if this is approved. Consider the implications very carefully. I mean, the next example could be a school and a housing development elsewhere in East Devon. It could be Axminster. It could be Donkerswell. It could be Exmouth. There's a dangerous precedent here. The proposal also envisages, and I realise that it's conceptual, 400 metres of Devon Bank and hedge being removed on Exeter Road. That's going to be replaced by what looks like a water feature. That's being described as enhancing the approach to ottery. I don't think that's right. I think it's environmental vandalism. So we do need to be very, very careful about this application. The applicants have stated on numerous occasions that this is the only option for the relocation of the school. It's being presented as a fait accompli, when in fact there are other options. There's a site for sale in Tipton at the moment. It's within the village limits. It's flat. There's no flood risks on it. It would be a lower build cost than the one that's on the screen at the moment. There would be a purchase cost to buy the land. Secondly, perhaps more controversially, if a non-C of E school was built, my understanding is that alternative school models can be funded by central government. That would mean that we could build a school on that site without the 150 houses. There's clear advantages to, from the perspective of both Tipton and Ottery in both of those examples. Instead, we're presented with a proposal that sees Tipton losing a core part of its village and its community. Ottery gains another large housing development to put on top of the others that have gone in the last decade or so.
30 seconds remaining.
Yeah, my letter includes various comments about the road safety and the flood risk. what needs to be remembered is that this, as mentioned previously, the school has King's has 1,100 students, 185 staff, 140 cars. None of that was considered in the road safety assessments. That's a serious concern. If you put in another school, that's 1,500 students and staff. The flood risk is based on a figure of 65 millimetres a year. The 2008 storm event in Ottery was 187 millimetres. That flood risk and the flood risk assessment is based on approximately a third of the level of rainfall that we have seen historically on that site. That's a very, very dangerous precedent. The flood risk to...
Sorry, is the 3 minutes up, please?
Yes, I did say that.
Yeah, I thought you did.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you just finish that sentence, please, Mr.
Yes,
Bargman?
the study looks at the flood risk on the site itself. There's a very, very significant flood risk to all the downslope properties, and they have not been looked at in the assessment.
Thank you, Mr. Bargman. Thank you. Next, we have the supporters. Colin Butler, please.
Hello there. I'm Colin Butler. I'm the executive head teacher of the Otter Valley Federation, which includes Tipton St John Church of England Primary School, and I've been involved since December 2012. As the head teacher, my focus is on the safety and well-being of the children and staff of the school, although ultimately this is the responsibility of the governors. Please imagine you are a governor of our school, a volunteer, unpaid. You have received a report which states that there is a significant risk to life at the school for which you are responsible. We are putting the lives of somebody's child at risk. Could you live with that? The governors remained because there was a possible solution to relocate the school, but there has been continued concern. In 2016, a volunteer experienced a flooding situation and recounted, to quote them, "The Metcombe Brook was overflowing and the head teacher had to action an emergency evacuation. The water was already pouring down the road extremely strongly. While we crossed the road, the water filled our shoes. The school steps were like waterfalls. It was a slippery and some of the children were becoming distressed. By the time children got to safety, only 4x4s could navigate the road. This was all within a matter of minutes. It was a frightening experience and one which I would be terrified to repeat. Interestingly, the flood skeptics weren't there when we were actually pulling the children through the flood waters. And it's not about if the school will flood again, but when. Despite the minor improvements on the Metcombe Brook, Tom Walling from the Environment Agency stated in his letter 2019 that the works are insufficient for larger order or more extreme events on the Metcombe and for all levels of flooding from the River Otter. In December, there have been 3 flood warnings from the Otter this year. And in the words of a parent at the school, I do not want my child to be the first to die due to flooding at Tipton School. The children and staff also have to spend valuable teaching time practicing flood evacuations, and every time a wet weather warning arrives, time is taken putting up floodgates is considerable. Each time flooding has happened, it's only been thanks to the hard work of parents, staff and the fire brigade that the site has been cleared of storm debris and the flood mud to enable the school to reopen. Tipton St John's School is a wonderful school, which has served the community for over 150 years. This relocation to Thorn Farm is the only viable proposal at this time. Without the move, I really do fear for the long-term future of our school. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Sullivan, you're speaking on behalf of John Sherwood.
Afternoon. Although there is widespread recognition that Tipton School needs to be rebuilt as the buildings are unfit for purpose, and there is a critical priority 1 project in the infrastructure delivery plan for additional primary places in Ottery St Mary, 210 in the short term. The need to deliver the rebuild at the Thorn Farm in Ottery seems to not have been fully accepted. The delivery plan also sets a project for the improvement of secondary education facilities, priority 2, to be progressed with developer contributions. The Thorn Farm proposal responds to both of these priorities, meeting the critical needs for the new primary school and allocating space for an 8-class block to further improve King's facilities if demand and circumstances permit. The neighbourhood plan policy 16 sets out 2 basic tests for supporting the proposed location of a new school. That the development should not lead to unacceptable traffic and parking impacts during the school run, and that the amenity of local residents should not be harmed. Some contributors have expressed concern that there would be an increase in traffic in the proposed, if the proposed school is built close to the King's School. However, as this is where Devon County Council owns the land, that has been made available for the school's use, and the Thorn Farm site includes the only land designated for education and community uses. The locality of Thorn Farm is the only place that the new school could be. Moreover, the governors are concerned, as anyone, that the proposal will provide safe access along the new access road, and the designers will meet the expected standards for parking and drop-off provisions. The proposal is also generally welcomed by our prospective neighbours on the B3174, as the highway improvements will be brought in along a stretch of road that has long been a concern. Although all prospective parents are informed of our proposed move to Ottery, currently 14 families who live south of Tipton have chosen to send their children to the school. However, while all pupils are welcome and parental choice, where it still exists in the local area, is to be respected, we appreciate the neighbourhood plan's view that it is essential that educational needs should be met as close to home as possible, and this proposal will help meet those needs. There will be many more children from Ottery at the school than from Tipton, and the prospective catchment would include the existing Tipton catchment and the west of Ottery, from where there can be shorter and more sustainable journeys to the new school, including walking and cycling along the footpaths and cycle path proposed for the development. There is some strong opposition to the proposed housing development needed to fund the school, as housing targets have been exceeded, but inevitably the recent housing built in and around Ottery has further ramped up the pressure for new primary places, filling Ottery and West Hill schools and leaving more than 100 pupils of primary school age from Ottery St Mary to go out of catchment. To sum up, I ask that you support the proposed move of Tipton St John's School to Thorn Farm in Ottery, where it is very much needed. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Jane Hulse.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I speak as a governor of the Federation. The governors and school have been told by the Environment Agency that there is no realistic option to build on the existing site. Interesting suggestions have been made, such as copying a nearby house on stilts. This is a mind-boggling as a template for a school building for small children. Also, it would not solve the split site issue and would not grow the school to accommodate the pressure on school places felt in the learning community. The site and the buildings are too small and not fit for purpose. You may ask if we are overemphasising the flood risk. Well, firstly, we cannot argue with the Environment Agency's statement that remaining on the site constitutes a risk to life. Secondly, despite there having been no floods at the school since 2017, scepticism about the flood risk could encourage decisions that endanger the safety of children. Thanks to James Bevan, the UK head of the Environment Agency, in 2017, some discretionary funding was allocated for minor mitigation measures to reduce disruption at the school from low-order flood events. Since then, the school has received many level 1 flood warnings, but none at level 2. As such, mitigation measures have not been fully tested. The school remains at risk from higher order events and operates knowing that there is a risk to life when this happens. Mitigation is only mitigation, not a solution. We looked elsewhere in the village. Since 2003, there have been 6 sites that have been actively explored, but none have proved viable due to issues such as access, highway safety, and funding. We also have to face facts that more children at Tipton School reside outside the village, principally Ottery St Mary. In a situation in which the funding of the relocation is principally supported by the local authority, who has a responsibility for providing sufficient pupil places in the learning community, They cannot and will not fund and build additional places where the children do not live. Yes, this is bitterly sad, but the number of children attending the school from the Tipton catchment has declined over the last 10 years. And in recent years, there have been between 35 and 40 children travelling out of Ottery to Tipton for school. If we relocate, there will be a new school for everyone to adjust to wherever it is, but the school will still be Tipton St John's School with the same staff and pupils, just moved 2 miles up the road to safety. It will meet the needs not just of pupils and staff at Tipton, but of the children in the learning community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Naomi Garrick.
My name is Naomi Garrick and I am the foundation stage teacher at Tipton St John. The governors of the school have been working hard over many years, particularly since 2003, to try and relocate the school due to the flooding risk that was emphasised in 2008 when the school had to move off the lower site into the village hall due to significant flooding event. More flooding events since have reinforced the need to move the school. Tipton St John is voluntary aided, which means that the governing body have the responsibility for the premises and health and safety of staff and pupils on the site. Central government provide capital grants to help meet the responsibilities, and there are criteria for each grant that have to be fulfilled. Before 2012, the available grants were aimed at driving up standards, and therefore schools were performing well academically, such as Tipton, were not a priority. Around 2012, the Priority School Building Programme was introduced. Unfortunately, Tipton did not qualify despite the risk to life identified by the Environment Agency if Tipton School remained on the current site, as the criteria did not include flooding risk. When a second round of Priority School Building Programme was introduced, we sought to have a grant funding criteria widened to include flood risk. Unfortunately, we were told that we would have been successful if the building flooded at the time of the application. But relocating the school in order to avoid damage did not meet the criteria. Following this, the government canvassed the more government ministers, having done so already in 2012, 2014, 15. Ultimately, we were told that no funds were available and we should look for work close with Devon County Council to try and find a solution. Supported by Devon County Council, we again went back to see another Secretary of State for Education who had an exceptional allocation of $750,000 towards the school relocation. However, we need to meet the significant funding shortfall in application before this enables us to do so, and is the local solution that we were encouraged to find. The rejection of the application in 2015 led some of the governors to consider resignation of the potential closure of the school. Remember, they have the responsibility for the staff and the pupils at the school and are only volunteers. The governors have continued to fight for Tipton to remain open because they believe it is worth saving. And because they have had a viable plan to pursue, they have explored every other alternative and met continually with dead ends.
30 seconds remaining.
This plan is the only viable option left. If this application is refused, it is likely that the governors will then have to consider ways of reducing the safety risk on the longer term. This will include options from withdrawing the lower site, meaning that the school will become a two-class school. The reality of this means that the school will not substantially financially be able and could ultimately close. This is not what they want, nor for what the pupils or the staff of Tipton School deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruth Ingram, please.
Hi, my name's Ruth Ingram. I'm head of school at Tipton St John. And Tipton St John is a great school. The pupils perform above average in their SATs. We're judged as good by Ofsted, and our SIAM's judgment is outstanding. But it's not just these external validations that matter. Tipton builds children of character who go on to contribute. Recently, for consecutive years, the head boy or head girl at King's School has been a Tipton pupil. And considering that we send just a maximum of 15 children each year into a year group of around 200, I think we can feel pretty proud of that. But, as you've seen, our success at Tipton comes despite some really significant challenges. The site's just way too small, the classrooms are too small, and at present, we're spending about £4,500 each year from an already tight school budget, just hiring the village hall for PE and lunch. And these are funds which just should be spent on education. There's a road between two key stages. The temporary buildings on our lower site are now over 50 years old, way past their expected lifespan. And you know of the floodplain designation, it's completely out of our hands, but when the lower site buildings fail, they won't be replaced. And the Environment Agency have stated more than once and very recently they won't support a rebuild on our site here. So our staff and children deserve better. I mean, currently we've got teaching assistants who are working outside in all weathers, not just because of COVID-19, but because there's simply nowhere else to put them. We've got no way to meet the statutory requirements for disabled access on either site, and valuable teaching time is lost daily moving our children across the road between the venues. And as a head of school, personally, I wake at night worrying in the school holidays or weekends if it rains torrentially. Are the floodgates we fitted to the building on the lower site actually holding? It's not okay. The children should be able to go to school without the fear of having to practice the flood evacuations at a moment's notice, and parents shouldn't have to worry that their children's educational time and experience will be impacted by flooding. Teachers should be able to get a good night's sleep on a stormy night. We've also lost families to other schools because of their concerns about the flooding risk, again impacting on our school budget and therefore the funds available to educate other children existing at the school. It's so clear we have to move house. And our current situation is time limited due to factors beyond our control. Our children, not just of Tipton St John, but in our learning community as a whole, deserve so much better. Don't get me wrong. I actually love teaching at Tipton St John. I love this village. I love
30 seconds remaining.
And when I heard that the way forwards was likely to be to leave the village itself, to be honest, I was gutted. It was grief, and it was never anybody's first choice. But for the reasons my colleagues have fully explained, in order to live, we do have to leave. And if this planning application is successful, then governors will of course begin to be able to instigate the full consultations required to move the school and take those next steps. But this can't happen until we have a deliverable solution to offer. So please let this be finally the way forwards for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we've heard about funding, and I don't think I need to remind members, but I will say for the benefit of others, funding is not a material planning consideration. Now we have the applicant, John Williams, please. Mr. Williams, you have 3 minutes.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak. It's a very detailed application and I'm not going to attempt to summarise it other than to say it has the support of East Devon planning officers, and I'm not going to attempt to counter the objectors other than to say a number of the objections that were made earlier in this presentation are plainly wrong. I'd like to make the point that Councillor McInnes, our education portfolio holder, and our leadership are very supportive of this, and they see it as the only way forward to progress this scheme. I'd like to correct the perception that Mrs. Ethelston is being funded by DCC. There is no current funding for that school, and indeed the Church of England status of Tipton makes no difference to the fact that we can't get funding from central government at the moment. I also like to correct the perception that Kings object to this application. They've remained neutral through the planning process. The key priority for us is to relocate the school to a safe and sustainable site. Our request to you is that you consider the points made carefully by the head teachers and governors, and that pupils are considered and their safety as being the prime concern. We can only place our trust in you as the planning committee to allow this relocation. Without this application proceeding, there seems to be no other tenable options to relocate the school. We have over several years made numerous attempts to find a different location and different funding solutions. This is deliverable. There aren't any alternatives as far as we're concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Now, Ottery Town Councillor, Councillor Richard Copus. Councillor Copus, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. The main comments of Ottery St Mary Town Council lay before you at the moment, emphasising the most important points. We vigorously oppose this planning application. The vote was unanimous. principally on the grounds of its development outside the built-up area of the boundary, which is contrary to the Ottery, St Mary and West Hill neighbourhood plan and the East Devon local plan. It's building houses on land which is actually designated for education and community use. That again is contrary to the Ottery, St Mary and West Hill neighbourhood plan and the East Devon local plan. This is 150 new dwellings. It is a lot of houses. We are a small country town. The East Devon local plan for Ottery St Mary was already being exceeded by well over 300 houses, and these additional houses will increase pressure and problems on the infrastructure. The affordable housing allocation is meant to be legally 50%, not 30%, and the applicants are insisting on a 30% allocation. Again, this is contrary to the East Devon local plan. There's concern that the development will increase pollution and flood risk. Certainly it will affect the alteration of the countryside at that part of the area. The roundabout will have 10-metre high street lights, that's 33 feet high, which is much higher than any other lighting around. It will alter the whole character of, again, the small country town. And the visual impact on slightly steeply rising ground will also be noticeable. There'll be an increase in traffic congestion, which will increase the danger on the road there, although we appreciate that a roundabout would slow traffic down, but there would be an increased number of traffic substantially. And in particular, we're concerned about the impact on Tipton St John Village, on the community, the negative impact on the community, on the social infrastructure, and on the families. This is Tipton St John's School, not Ottery St Mary's School that's proposed. And it will help to tear the heart out of the village. Also, I would just like to point out the lack of public transport links along that road, which is something which has not been addressed in the application. We were unanimous in our decision, Madam Chairman. Those were the main reasons that we objected to it. As I say, you've got the more detailed facts in front of you there.
30 seconds remaining.
And thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Copus. Now, Devon County Councillor Claire Wright, it's in your division. Would you like to speak? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Yes, I would. I think more than anything, this application, what I'm feeling right now is sadness. I've spoken at planning committee many times, and I've always had a very clear view on planning applications. I'm either opposed or I'm in favour, and this application is very difficult. And on paper, it breaches all the planning policies that it shouldn't. I hear the anger, the understandable anger in the voices of objectors. I also hear the sadness in the voice of Colin Butler. And I've worked with Colin for many years, and I've been there at many meetings when we've tried to come to a solution about what to happen, how to address this. And Naomi Garrick's quite right, and I sensed her anger too, and I completely share it. We've been massively let down by the government on this. And if I can rewind to 2015, Naomi's quite right. There was an application into the government under the Priority Schools funding programme. There is a risk to life. The Environment Agency stated there was a risk to life to pupils from Tipton St John crossing the road to the higher site in flood waters, and that can happen really, really quickly, and the danger is very severe very quickly. Despite that, the application was turned down, but not before. It sort of lingered on for about a year, and there was a field identified within the village, out of the flood zone, and talks with highways officers were leading to a relatively positive solution about this field being suitable for the school to be relocated. And there were talks with the landowner, positive talks, and then everything changed when the application was turned down. Anyway, so I wanted to mention that because I think it's important that the committee understands all of the background to this, as well as just the application that's in front of them on the table at the moment, although of course you have to look at it in terms of what's in front of you and the planning policies that are before you. So essentially, from my point of view, as I said, I'm feeling really sad. I feel that although I've supported Tipton St John School in the past, I've supported Colin Butler absolutely 100% in the past, I feel that I cannot support this planning application because it is contrary to the local plan, it's contrary to the Ottery St Mary and West Hill neighbourhood plan, and I don't believe it's the right solution for Ottery St Mary, and I'm the councillor for Tipton St John and Ottery St Mary, so this one has been a tricky one for me. But I feel that the policies it breaches are too significant for me to support it at this stage.
Thank you, Claire. The ward member now, Councillor Vicky Jones. Vicky, you have 5 minutes.
Oh, am I on?
Yes.
Hi, thank you, Chair. So I speak not only as an East Devon District Councillor of the ward of Ottery St Mary, but also as a local resident, town councillor, and currently the Mayor of Ottery. I see that the officers have recommended approval with conditions. I, however, strongly object to this planning application. The officers have stated that the application departs from the development plan. It doesn't just depart, it stomps all over it. The officer recommendations are contrary to the views of the ward member and the parish council. They state that part of the application site lies within an area allocated for community and educational use under Strategy 24 of the local plan. It has been said that the benefits of the proposal outweigh the harm of departing from the adopted allocation, and that the impacts of the local highway network, trees, local landscape, the setting of heritage assets, flooding and wildlife have all been addressed. I would argue that this is inaccurate and incorrect. There is a lot about this application that is unknown, but the impact on Ottery St Mary is not one of them. There is discussion about how a new primary school to replace an existing school, which is required due to identify dangers from flooding, is a benefit to Ottery. I would argue again that this is not a new school for Ottery. It is a relocated school. A new school for Ottery would get government funding and would not require the 150 houses to be able to build it. I fully appreciate that financial matters are not a planning application decision. However, this entire planning application is built on the scenario that without those 150 houses, they cannot build the Tipton school. DCC have carried out public consultations both in Tipton and at Ottery, and the majority of people opposed the school being moved out of Tipton. What is the point of the consultation if the results are completely ignored by DCC? Was it just a paper pushing exercise? We are encouraging towns and parishes to do neighbourhood plans, to link in with the local plans, etc. And then we're ignoring them completely. What is the point? They cost a lot of time, they cost a lot of money, they cost a lot of effort. This application goes completely against everything in the Ottery St Mary neighbourhood and West Hill Parish neighbourhood plan. It goes against the East Devon plan. Ottery is supposed to have had 350 houses maximum built between 2017 and 2031. We're already at over 600, with more planning applications constantly coming through. I strongly believe that if this planning application hadn't been put forward by DCC, it wouldn't even have got this far. King School is, so that particular piece of land on the neighbour plan is for education and community use only. There is no stipulation in the plan whatsoever for housing. We've been told that it was not going to be that much different. People, it will be a little bit different, etc. If you've actually been there and seen how that topography and how different it is in depth, etc., when you look at those fields, you can see that to put those houses in there, they're going to change that massively. We're going to have massive issues with the houses that live along those roads. Somebody said just now that the neighbouring properties are quite happy with it. Actually, if you look at the letters that have come in, there's only 2 neighbours that are happy with it, and that's because they desperately need a path to protect themselves when they come out, because that road along there is so dangerous. One of the major points I would look to point out is that we had a road safety audit, WSP engineers. They have not objected. However, I would like to point out that when they chose to view the roads around the area is questionable to say the least. The audit team visited the site together on the 31st of July 2020 between 8:30 and 11, where they have stated there was an average traffic flow. Of course there was. This was during the summer holidays and just after national lockdown when most people were at home. This is obviously not a realistic view of the roads, road users, or indeed the general area on a normal school day. In fact, the photos that they've got, there's not even a single car along that road. I've lived in Ottery for almost all of my life, and I can strongly assure you that there's always cars along that road. WSP have advised that there are issues with the go-away road based on their observations. You've all got the information in front of you. I won't bore you with them, but there's problem 15, 16, 17, 18 and 19. The other thing is none of the problems about those particular problems have been commented on by DCC. And Chris Herades from Landscape and Green Infrastructure Officer of East Devon District Council is opposed to it. Why are the officers ignoring his view? He says the impact will not be minor, as DCC have stated. It has been greatly understated how much that is going to stand out from all aspects of Ottery. At the end of the day, excuse me, bear with me one moment. At the end of the day, in conclusion, the planning application is contrary to development plan policies which protect the countryside from development.
Remaining.
Thank you. And there are no material considerations which outweigh these policies to support the grant of planning permission. We have adequate housing in Ottery. We don't have the infrastructure in place for another 150 houses, regardless of what they're for. What the planning committee need to be aware of, as you quite rightly pointed out by the chair, is this is a planning application. Take out of the equation why the school has to be relocated, because if those houses weren't being built, the school couldn't be relocated there. End of. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Peter Faithful, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. First, I would like to say I am in support of Tipton Primary School having a new school. However, what we're discussing is this planning application. It is against the local plan, Strategy 24. It's against the Ottery St Mary and West Hill neighbourhood plan. In the executive summary, highways network is suggested to have been addressed. To me, it has not. Hay Lane is still unsuitable for the increased volume of traffic travelling along it. There's also issues at Solston Corner in that area. The roads are too narrow for the increased volume of traffic for 2 schools at the same location. Along Exeter Road, at the south side of the site, no work will be done on the south side of Exeter Road, which will leave the site dangerous for cyclists. There's a whole list of issues on the WSP road safety audit, such as the positioning of the bus stop, which is rather close to a bend, and buses should not be are not allowed to stop in dangerous locations, and I would suggest that positioning of the bus stop is a dangerous position. There's a whole list of other issues on that report. Where am I going? There's the real issue with the traffic is the school run, which when there was survey was being done did not exist, and with 2 schools, the school run will be, well, it'd be a horrendous traffic chaos around Barrack Cross and Solston Corner and all around that area. There's also issues of water runoff coming down onto Exeter Road. There's also issue, the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. The majority of cars coming down Exeter Road do not reduce their speed to 30 miles an hour until they've gone well beyond the start of the 30-mile speed limit area. They usually reduce the speed at about the industrial estate, well beyond King's School, let alone the top. This is a downhill run and people just allow their cars to run down there. I think that's covered just about everything I wanted to say. As I said, I do support the concern of the staff at Tipton Primary School to have an alternative school, but I cannot support the application that has been presented to us. This is, I say, this is just outline planning permission, so it's a highways issue as far as I can see, and the highways issues to me are not acceptable. I think that's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Faithful. Councillor Jeff Pratt, please. And you can speak as long as you like, but I think most of the points have probably been covered. But you'd like to start?
Yes, thank you, Chair. There's just one point I would like to mention to you, Chair. I should have said that I was when we were declaring our interest. I was a member of the working group that prepared the neighbourhood plan for Ottery, St Mary and West Hill. I think that's a personal interest, but I'm now declaring that interest.
Thank you. Yeah, carry on.
In 1843, Tipton St John Primary School was founded by the church. The school is situated in the heart of the village. All the village amenities used by the children are right on their doorstep. The school is divided into two buildings. The main school is located next to the church and the lower school next to the village hall. The school site includes a playground and a large grassed area. The school makes regular use of the village facilities, including the church, village hall, recreation ground, tennis courts, and play area, as well as the village environment itself. The school serves the village of Tipton, St John, and surrounding villages and hamlets. A number of the children travel from outside and designate the designated catchment area by choice, due partly to the good results of the Ofsted reports that the school regularly receives. In 1953, the school took its present status of Church of England Voluntary Aided School. Recently, the Tipton St John Playing Field Association recently completed the refurbishment of the play area at the recreation ground, and it was pleasing to note that the children of primary school were closely involved in helping to design the area, and with the teachers took part in the opening ceremony. The village school plays a crucial role in the life of the village, and it would be sadly missed if it vacates the village as a result of this application being approved. On the question of flooding, the only time the actual lower school building has flooded was in October 2008. On that occasion, the Environment Agency issued a press release saying that the area was pelted by extremely heavy hail and rain, which triggered the floods, a very unusual combination of extreme weather. But since then, the grounds of the school have been flooded, but not the building. The flooding in the past has come from the Metcombe Brook. The school is, however, sited on a flood zone 3. The main risk of flooding, as I said, is from the Metcombe Brook, and that happened more recently in 2012, 2014, and 2016. All of these instances were during a period when the Metcombe Brook was not operating correctly due to a number of incorrect alterations. The Environment Agency advised that between 2000 and 2017, the brook had incorrectly had a raised pavement constructed and its drainage channel altered and reduced in size. In June 2017, improvement work was completed on the brook to restore it to its original structure and to allow more water to drain back into the brook and drainage channel and away from the school. The school site has not been flooded since the alterations were completed, despite February being the wettest on record. It's arguable that provided a satisfactory flood risk assessment is obtained, improvement works to the lower building could be carried out on the existing site. The main issue is the condition of the building, which is in a very poor state of repair. It appears that grant applications have not been made to rectify this situation. The alternative and the better course is to secure a satisfactory site near the village. And as I speak, there is a parcel of land, some 4.7 acres of pasture land, which is located within the village boundary and is situated to the northeast of the village. It's a piece of land which has had planning applications before for housing, which have been refused, but it's an opportunity for the school to move quickly. And I suggest that the governors look at that site and see what can be done to keep the school in Tipton. Other primary schools in the area have had building works carried out or in the process of having works carried out. Sidbury Primary School, that school is zoned as flood zone 3, where there's a high probability of flooding. In that case, the flood risks largely emanate from the near river, the River Sid. The school made a planning application in 2017 for a building with toilets, a classroom, a cloakroom, and an external play area with raised decking, a new ramp, and a new hall store. Despite the flood zone 3, the plans were backed by the Environment Agency and the County Education Authority. So that application was approved by East Devon District Council, despite the flood zone 3. Sidmouth Primary School. Oh, the other point I should make, that Sidbury Primary School application was government funded. Sidmouth Primary School has recently issued a press release confirming that their multi-million-pound new building for Sidmouth Primary School has been approved. The situation there is that they have obtained government funding of £4.2 million, and that was helped along by Devon County Council. It seems that Devon County Council and the Environment Agency seem to be very helpful in respect of other primary schools, but not Tipton St. John. The other point I would like to raise on funding is that the government on the 29th of June issued a press release confirming that substantial additional investments will be made available to schools. We'll also receive funding this year to refurbish buildings in order to continue raising standards across the country. Investment will be targeted at school buildings in the worst condition. £1 billion is available for the first 50 projects, 560 million for repairs and 200 million for upgrades. So why is it that we are here today dealing with an application by Devon County Council to build a school to replace the school at Tipton St. John, but they haven't got the funds or can't get the funds or haven't even applied for the funds? This is deceitful conduct on the part of Devon County Council. Leading now on to planning matters, part of the application site lies within an area allocated for educational and community use under Strategy 24 of the local plan and Policy NP 25 of the Ottery St Mary and West Hill neighbourhood plan. This application departs substantially from the allocation site in that it seeks to build 150 houses on this and adjoining land, and then to construct the primary school, not on the allocated land, but on land adjacent to the allocation site. So we have to determine whether this is a sustainable development and a decision made as to whether the benefits of the proposal outweigh the harm of the departing from the adopted application site or the allocation site. The harm in this application is that the provision of housing on agricultural land outside the built-up area boundary, and secondly, below the policy level of affordable housing. Thirdly, the visibility of the site from various viewpoints within the town and local area, and the government funding which is now available all weigh against the proposal. The only benefit is that provide a new primary school to replace an existing school, which is required, they say, due to identified dangers from flooding. Planning for provision of community infrastructure is required for existing and new housing development. Even now, there is an inadequate provision for the existing population in Ottery St Mary to the detriment of existing residents. In particular, there is an inadequate capacity at the Coleridge Medical Centre, whilst medical services at the hospital have almost ceased. In addition, the King's School is at full capacity. It appears that Devon County Council wish to destroy the East Devon countryside by selling land with planning permission for development of 150 houses, which are not permitted under the development plan policy. Their justification is that the sale of their land with planning permission is necessary to finance development of a new Tipton St John Primary School, albeit 3 miles from Tipton St John. Notwithstanding, Devon County Council has had many years to plan for and secure finance for the purchase of land outside the floodplain and construct a new school in Tipton St John. I've mentioned strategy 24, and there is a further strategy which needs to be looked into, and that is strategy 7. This means that the land which is outside the allocated area on that site can only be built if there is provision in the neighbourhood plan. Well, there is no provision for building outside that allocation area. And for this reason alone, this application should fail. The access road into the site runs through the site and then comes out at the northern end at Cadhay Lane. Cadhay Lane is a very quiet, leafy lane, very narrow. In most places, you cannot pass a car. The site really is not feasible for a development of 150 houses. And my view is that looking at the whole site, it's really not viable for it to proceed on the basis of the fact that it's in breach of the policies of the local plan and also the neighbourhood plan. There have been a number of planning applications in Cadhay Lane, which I've looked at, for one dwelling houses, the one dwelling, Cadhay Lane. There are 2 or 3 cases where planning was refused because of the problems with the road. The question there was that the road was to remove the whole of the side frontage to the detriment of the character and appearance of the area was needed in one case, so that access could be obtained for visibility purposes. So I think the question is certainly one which is not good. Cadhay Lane is not suitable to take on an access road with 150 houses and a school. The traffic would be too much. So what I would like to do, Chair, is propose that this application is refused. And I think the grounds are it's in breach of strategy 24 and strategy 7 of the local plan, and also neighbourhood plan 25. And I seek a seconder.
Before you, yes, Councillor Pratt, we're actually at the moment taking speakers. We have one more statement to read out from Councillor Jess Bailey, and then we'll move into debate, and that is where you can put forward your proposal.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually have made it into the meeting, so if you're happy, I can speak very briefly. Thank you.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, so I'm ward member for Western Aylesbury, which is the adjoining ward. And as we know, the application represents a departure from the development plan as it runs contrary to the local plan and the neighbourhood plan, and our officers acknowledge that. So therefore, it needs to be determined under NPPF 47, which states applications need to be determined in accordance with development plans unless material considerations indicate otherwise. So it's a subjective judgment as to whether there are material considerations which dictate that the planning policies can in effect be overridden. In other words, do the benefits outweigh the harm caused by the departure from the adopted plans? And I personally believe that the officers have reached the incorrect conclusion in this respect. The identified benefits by reference to the 3 strains of sustainability include economic, so some jobs will be created because would be a larger school than previously. Social, there'll be a new school and there'll be some limited social housing. And C, environment, and there the officers cite the roundabout. But the harm, I believe, particularly by reference to the environmental limit of sustainability, outweighs the benefits. So there will be significantly more traffic and congestion. And what I believe is the key is that there will be a very large development, including 150 houses on a greenfield site outside the established boundary of the town. And it will be prominent. And our own landscape officer advises the site is considered to have an unacceptable landscape and visual impacts due to the elevated open position within a predominantly rural context beyond the established urban envelope. And I think that's pretty clear. So in my view, the application, because it is contrary to the development plans, an applicant, I don't believe, has satisfied that the benefits outweigh the detriment. I don't think they've satisfied the appropriate material considerations in NPP 47, and it's my view that the application should therefore be refused. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Right, well, we've heard several of the speakers, including the ward members, mention whether the harm outweighs the benefit of having a new school. That is for members to decide. Officers have reached their conclusion. You might well reach a different one. I will say that I was very concerned that the landscape architect's report was cut down to about half a page, and some of the very pertinent and strong points that he made, some of which have been mentioned, were not in the agenda papers. That does concern me. If we're going to have officers like this, then we should be including their report and taking heed of them. So I'm going to let the ward member Jeff Pratt go first. Councillor Pratt.
Thank you, Chair. The report by Chris Harides is completely against this application, and he points out that the site is at a very high level against the backdrop of Ottery St Mary. To the north, you have along Cadhay Lane, about half a mile from the site, you have the Cadhay House, a 14th century building with a grade 1 listing, and the parklands around it, grade 2. And from that area, you can see the top part of the site, and that area there would be changed. And see from, well, the plan I've got in front of me on the screen at the moment shows housing on that area, and also the area to the east at East Hill and the land which is partly AONB. That you can see the site from that area, and down onto the south area of the map, you can see the site as far down as Wiggerton. So it's a prominent site in the sense that it really is on a very high level compared with surrounding countryside, and it's very visible. So my view is instead of the areas seeing beautiful countryside with hedgerows and trees, you're going to end up with an urban sprawl. And Chris Herides also points out that in the evening time, when the lights are on the street, if this application goes through, it'll be terrific to see the lights going up as they will be almost as high as the floodlights on the Mugger at the leisure centre. So I think that is one of the points which is against this application. They're going to tear away the hedgerows at the front of the building, the site, because they need a good visibility display in order to put in the roundabout on the Exeter Road. That's part of the Exeter Road narrows quite significantly. The situation regarding the whole site is, in my view, not up to standard for this type of development. And I just want to confirm my original points to you, or my proposal, that the application should be refused. And I've already stated it's against the Strategy 24, Strategy 7, and Neighbourhood Plan 25.
Thank you, Councillor.
I do now need a seconder.
Yeah. Do we have a seconder, please?
I shall be seconding, Madam Chair.
Sorry, who was that?
Skinner.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I couldn't see you on there, Philip. Yes, thank you. Would you like to speak on this now?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to congratulate Councillor Pratt for a very succinct way of going forward, and the passion and knowledge that he's put into quite an in-depth detail about this.
Mm.
I want to just start off by saying this is a very, very difficult application. We have on one hand two aspects to this application. We have a school that is in dire need of relocation, and we have an application site for 150 houses in Ottery St Mary. My personal view is that Ottery St Mary is getting swamped with housing without the infrastructure. And a question was asked by previous speakers that if it were not for a school going there, would we even have considered it? And the answer to that question is, I wouldn't even think it would have got validated. So on that way and going forward, it doesn't fit within the local plan. And I'm not prepared, Chair, to drive coach and horses through our planning policies on the basis of weighing up what is the good, the bad, or the ugly. I believe that had it were an application, and Councillor Pratt spoke extremely well in keeping social structure within the villages of which we live. What is absolutely important to Tipton St John, and I'm sure officers at county and the members of the school, I have absolutely a high regard for in the work that they're delivering, that if the school could be relocated into Tipton St Mary, and I could probably already hear the groans of, oh, here we go again, that in actual fact, I think it's something in the right location, in the right place, putting the school in the right place is something I would very much having obviously have to see the application, I would want to think that I could get behind. I know that means that there's going to be a delay. I fully understand where we are with Devon County Council in wanting to absolutely find the funding to make this happen. I get all of that. I really do. I've been doing this a long time. I fully understand that. But it's such a difficult balance between where the location of this land is. And let's face it, the land is not being put forward because it's a suitable piece of land. This land is being put forward because it's owned by Devon County Council. And the land that's owned by Devon County Council, they need to fund the school. So I absolutely get the position that Devon County Council are in. And I absolutely get where the school is. And I dare say my words are falling on many people thinking, oh dear, this is going to add so much weight to the way the outcome of this application is going to be. Every member will have their view on how they're going to take this forward, an application going forward. But what is the point, members, of us, and it's been said by other members, of us having our policies and absolutely putting coach and horses through it? This is not 20 houses. It's not 25. This is 150 houses on rising land in Ottery St. Mary. It doesn't fit within our local plans. It's not been put forward before. It's just a departure from policy to get a school in. I'm sorry, I really wanted to support this. I really did. I really felt that I wanted to get behind, get the school, get it going. Let's move on. And the more I've read it, and I actually thought I was going to support this application. I've been listening to the speakers. I've been listening to members, and I just got to a place whereby I just cannot put our policies just to one side, just to fit this in, when in actual fact, perhaps there seems, I'm only going a little part by what Councillor Pratt is saying, and I respect Councillor Pratt, of course I do, but I can't take material planning considerations on hearsay. But I don't believe Councillor Pratt to be a man who makes things up as he goes along. He means what he says. He's involved with this. He understands it, and I support him. And the reason I'm getting behind Councillor Pratt in this application is because I absolutely believe, nearly hanging on every word of what he said, he believes in what he says and what he's doing, and all for the right reasons. All for the right reasons. And it's on that basis, Madam Chairman, you can have the report, you can read this, you can talk about the road, you can talk about the widths, and let's face it, this is an outline application. But I think we all know that if we allow this application to go through on an outline basis, it will mean that our hands will be half up behind our back on some things in going forward because we've already allowed it as an outline. It doesn't fit with me. It doesn't fit within the policies. And I'm ever so sorry. I always try to be proactive. In this case, it just doesn't weigh up for me, and I just can't get behind it. And I'm going to support, as I already have through you, Chair, I'm going to support Councillor Pratt, and I'm going to go for a recommendation of refusal on this particular application. And I'm so apologetic to the school. I'm so supportive of what you're trying to do, but I just can't move from that place. It's just not right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. Well, we've had some very strong arguments. The Ottery St Mary Council unanimously objected. All the ward members, including the county council member, have objected. It is against the local plan. It goes against the neighbourhood plan. So I think that there are some very strong feelings on both sides, I have to say. Now we have Councillor David Key, please.
Thank you, Chairman. There are several things that I'd like to actually say. I'm sorry I can't agree with Councillor Skinner. Okay, yes, I mean, I've got villages that have got local neighbourhood plans, and on 2 or 3 occasions they've had to be broken because of the situation. But what does concern me, in fact, is that the school at Tipton St John is in a sad state of repair. Now, we've heard that probably the biggest portion of those children don't come from the actual village. They come from outside, they come from Ottery St Mary. Now, is that going to actually give any strength to a new school being built in Tipton? In my opinion, no, because they're going to say, no, we'll build another school somewhere else, which would be probably Ottery St Mary, where probably half the children are coming from anyway. It's very sad because the school is well respected, and the teachers, as you've heard from the governors, you've heard from the teachers, that the school is just not adequate, and it's not serviceable for today's teaching. With regard to the road, people were saying all the traffic coming down over from Daisy Mount. Now, the roundabout is going to slow them down anyway, which is not a problem, because roundabouts do slow traffic down. If only they knew about Hain Lane in Honiton, where you've got a single carriageway under a railway bridge, where 3 houses are being built in a stringed out area, not in a condensed area like this is here. It's strung out along the railway line. But anyway, that's beside the point. What concerns me is the fact that, yes, I mean, too much opinion has been put on this money side of it. And I think this is what has affected sort of some of the questions. We were told by the chairman that the money should not come into it. We're looking at an application for these houses. And I appreciate the fact it's grade 3 land, which is the lowest grade that you can more or less get apart from common land. So the value of the land is not that great anyway. It's departed from any other agricultural land. So it's not going to be, it's got what they call off land for anybody that's going to farm it. Okay, I with regard to Harides with his report, but that doesn't mean to say that when it came to a full application that we could actually stipulate that there's going to be hedgerows put up or trees put in to actually cover and camouflage this development. And I think a lot of these things could be overcome that have been put forward against it. I mean, the flooding off of this, I mean, let's face it, all these estates now are all have drains, and the roads have the culverts and drains on it. So that would alleviate any flooding that everybody's so panicky about. This is the thing. One of the things that did come to my mind is the fact that with this road going from Cadhay to Barrack Road, would there ever be the tendency to actually close that road from that Cadhay turning, or by the swear, so it doesn't go past the school? And I think that could be a thing, but that would have to be if it came to a full application rather than outline. We're just looking at outline at the moment. Thank you.
Chair, are you there?
You're
on mute.
Thank you, Councilloricki. Yeah, Councillor Desarum next.
Thank you, Chair. Having, as many members have said, this is a very difficult application because clearly, as you yourself summed up, there is no local plan or neighbourhood plan support for it. However, it is quite clear from what the head said that it's needed sooner rather than later. The school governors, I'm a school governor myself, and I note that it is said that school governors are involved with their school community, which they are, and they act as critical friends to the head teacher and senior leaders. So what we could say is that the critical friends within the Ottery community and the existing school, they believe that the benefits of this mixed use proposal would outweigh the harm, because obviously clearly here we are dealing with the principle of development. However, I have heard from the ward members' comments, and we are not here today to rip the heart out of the village, as one of the ward members' comments says. And I think that on balance, having read this report and listened to the debate very intently, that as Councillor Pratt said, that if we go down this road, we are actually going to be left with an urban sprawl, which certainly isn't what we want, because obviously the site is on a greenfield site outside the BUAB. So for that reason, I will also be joining Councillor Pratt and Councillor Skinner in saying that I cannot lend my support to it, because of the fact that it violates policy and it's just simply not acceptable. However, as other speakers have also said, I am aware that there is a need to build this new school. So I think that needs to be looked at, but obviously that's an issue for another day. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Desarum. Councillor Pook.
Thank you, Chair. So much has been said on this, so I'll try and be brief. I think we've got to remember this is an application for a housing development, not a new school for Tipton St John. All the support is all to do with the school, and which I fully support and I fully understand, but there's no policy support for a housing development. It's very much an application of financial convenience for the Devon County Council, and it's not based on any good planning grounds. Putting a need for a new school to one side, I will therefore object on grounds of non-compliance with all the policy points which have already been raised, not only to Ottery St Mary, but also the negative implications to Tipton St John of ripping out the centre of the village. So in the light of what I hope will be a refusal, I would therefore hope that DCC actually start to investigate with a bit more energy and enthusiasm a real sustainable solution in Tipton St John, rather than a convenient solution for DCC. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pook. Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's I'm not going to repeat everything that's been said, obviously, but there's two important principles. Firstly, that there's an area already established for community and educational use. We've heard there's a need for a new school or a moving of the school. The issue is that the school should be centrally funded on the site that's already allocated and within the terms of the neighbourhood plans and local plan. So the housing is outside the plans, so it should be refused. And I think the harm done seriously outweighs any benefits. And a benefit was mentioned of a roundabout. If you compare that to the loss of the environment, I think I vote for maintaining the existing agricultural land. So I totally agree, as has been said by the school, by the headmistress, that they deserve better. Indeed, they do. But I don't think it comes at the cost of 150 houses on the outskirts of Ottery. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Howe.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm just wondering where everyone was at last committee when you authorised housing outside of the local plan, neighbourhood plan, everywhere else at Winslade Park. No difference. There is no difference at all. There they needed the funds to redevelop their employment space. Here they need the funds to create a school. So please be careful. You've already broken the policies last month. You're now reinforcing them this month. Maybe that should be a judicial review against the council for changing their minds. The other thing that seems to be forgotten, and what the supporters were saying, is the Environment Agency has put the notice on Devon County Council and the school, I imagine, about the risk to life. And we are sitting here praying, I presume, that we don't get a sudden extreme weather event and that school comes under extreme threat, as there have been warnings about. because at that point, the Environment Agency is correct and we're wrong. I have real concerns about that. I have real concerns about everything the opposers to this scheme has said. Although I do think the roundabout's a good idea. Driving that road most days, as I do, to and from dropping my son to school at King's, that road needs improvement. And I can't see it happening many other ways apart from by a bit of development. And a roundabout might slow it down. Good pavements down further down would help, etc. King's haven't objected. So the King's school, the secondary school, hasn't objected about being full. The local GP surgery hasn't objected about being full. And they're a private practice anyway. As such, you can get other GP surgeries in the area if those are needed. So we're down to landscape impact. And that is fairly severe, I agree. But we're also doing a new local plan at this minute in time. And where is more development going to happen in Ottry? Because it's got to happen in Ottry, the same as it's got to happen in virtually every village and place up and down the, throughout East Devon to get our numbers right. So this could well be allocated in a couple of years' time. And otherwise, where are the other logical places for development? Are there other places in Ottry, around Ottry? Because Ottry will take more development. It's got to. As I say, just like Cranbrook has to, just like every other place has to. So we need to be realistic as well. And I'm not worried either way. I just think we need to be consistent in how we apply our policies, not ignore them for one development and then all of a sudden find a renewed vigor for them in a secondary development. But above all, I am most concerned about those kids in that school. It takes nothing for a freak weather event. And being as the Environment Agency have warned about this, maybe we should be protesting for Tipton School to be closed as a matter of urgency and those kids taken out and moved elsewhere. I know that's a Devon County responsibility, but at the same time, we're part of that responsibility here. Devon County have come up with an option to make those kids safe, secure, and in a fit school with the support of the school community. And they've managed to fund it this way. Do I like it? Hell no. But at the same time, we need to be realistic and realise what we're saying yes and no to and why we're trying to delay it, especially after all this time of Devon County. Claire Wright, I know, she's done her absolute best for Tipton. I've sat and listened to her a number of times, and she's worked with officers for the school community, as have many other people. But where are the other options after 8 years of looking? None have come forward yet. This is the only one that so far worked out feasibly. So I do ask everyone to soul search deeply about their decisions they're making and work out what they think is the best for those kids and the communities around. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howe. With regard to the flooding issues, I do take issue with the comments that have been made that imply that we would be responsible if lives were lost if we refuse this application. I think that is wrong. That's emotional blackmail, and I regret that people have resorted to that. I'm not meaning you, Councillor Howe, but it has been mentioned. I'd like to ask Mr. Rose about the flooding. When the Metcombe Brook flooded, was there a particular reason for that in 2016? And also about the roads, Cadhay Lane flooding. Can you give us some enlightenment on that, please?
I don't think I can. Sorry, I don't have details to hand of the reasons or behind the flooding at that time. All I can say, really, with regard to this site and flooding, is that the Environment Agency and Devon County as the Flood Risk Authority originally raised concerns to the application.
Yeah.
They've been worked through with the applicant to the point that they've now withdrawn their objections to the scheme. And obviously any reserved matters application will have to come forward with the details of how all of that is to be dealt with. I know it's not liked by many members of the public, but when you are doing this scale of development, there's always engineering works and solutions that can be done to deal with on-site surface water runoff. So from that point of view, I don't think there's concerns with this application from a flood risk point of view.
Okay, thank you. I wonder if I could defer to the one of the ward members, to Councillor Pratt. Could you offer any enlightenment on flooding issues in the lanes, please?
Yes, Chair.
Yes.
The situation, as far as I'm aware, the flooding in 2016 you asked about.
Yes.
That was during a period, I'm told by the group that just bear with me a second. The group who put in an area about the let me see, got it here. Where it is. Yes, this came from members of the support the school, from parents of the children. They apparently had a communication from the Environment Agency saying there were faults on the Meckham Brook, and those faults were put right and completed in June 2017. But up until, well, the applicants detailed flooding in 2012, 2014 and 2016. All of these instances were during a period when the Meckham Brook was not operating correctly due to a number of incorrect alterations. The Environment Agency advised, and it must have advised this group, that between 2000 and 2017, the brook had incorrectly had a raised pavement constructed and its drainage channel altered and reduced in size. In June 2017, the improvement work was completed on the brook to restore it to its original structure and to allow more water to drain back into the brook and drainage channel and away from the school. And then the school site has not been flooded since the alterations were completed, despite February being the wettest on record. That's all I have on it. But that's been said, and it's true that the building hasn't been flooded.
That is helpful. I knew I'd read it somewhere, so that's very helpful. Thank you, Councillor Pratt. Right. Let me see.
Chair, if I could just add, the building has only been flooded on the one occasion in October 2008. It's the grounds that have been flooded in 2012, 2014 and 2016. I do wish that the governors now take an opportunity to have a look at this property in Tipton St John, the 4.7 acres of land, which is on the market at the moment. They really do need to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Ollie Davey, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's important that we ensure that we are looking just at the application in front of us today. There are two issues here, and I think we need to try and pull them apart. One is a school. Nobody disputes that Tipton St John needs a new school. The question is whether it needs to be in Ottery St Mary. If that proposal was on the land already allocated for education and community use, I don't think we'd have a problem with it. Now, the other issue is the housing estate. And if it was just the housing estate, I think we'd be turning it down immediately. It's outside the built-up area boundary. It's less than the amount of affordable housing that we should have, and so it would fail on just about every possible criterion. And so we're really being told you can't have one without the other. And Councillor Howe is absolutely right. We had a similar question with Winslade Park quite recently, that you couldn't have the one without the other. And then that one we did accept it. But each application has to be looked at on its merits, and Councillor Howe knows that full well. So comparisons with other applications are always dangerous because there's usually something that's different. And in this case, I think one of the most difficult ones is the prominence of this site, the visibility of it, and the impact on the surrounding ecology. It's been suggested that the new school would still be within the catchment of Tipton St John. Well, I've just looked on Google Maps and I find that very hard to believe, because Tipton St John is closer to West Hill and West Hill is closer to Ottery St Mary, and I don't hear a proposal to close the school in West Hill and relocate it to Ottery St Mary, although possibly if I was head teacher at West Hill I'd be watching this quite nervously, because if they're going to build a school that is larger than is required just for the pupils of Tipton St John, you wonder what else they've got in mind. So I think the suggestions that we are putting children's lives on the line, it is, as Chair has suggested, is emotional blackmail. And we're not disputing that Tipton St John needs a new school, but there's an awful lot of dispute about where that school should be sited. And I cannot accept that in order to relocate the school, we have to accept, and Ottery St Mary has to accept, a large housing estate on its outskirts, outside of its built-up area boundary, and in a very prominent location. The improvement of a roundabout is to be welcomed and perhaps should be considered anyway at the bottom of Cadhay Lane, but is not a great reason to allow this. There's a suggestion of a cycle access, but we haven't got much detail of that. But there's also a dispute about pupil numbers, because it's been suggested on page 98 of the report that the majority of the pupils from outside the catchment, but we have no figures for that. And so obviously they change year on year, but it would have been helpful to have some kind of percentage there, whether it's 80-20 or whether it's 51-49. And in fact, I have seen figures suggesting that it's more like half and half. So I'm not convinced that taking the school out of Tipton St John is at all a good idea. And as been suggested, it would take heart out of that village, and it's obviously one of the things we consider when we're looking at sustainability. So I think it's a case of follow the money, and that's not a material consideration for us. So I do not think that the benefits of this scheme are sufficient to outweigh the harm that it would cause.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Now, Councillor Gazzard, I noticed your hand had been up. Is it, I know you had a problem with your hands this morning. Not for
Thank
the
you,
first
Chair.
time.
Yeah. No,
do you want to speak still?
I've put it up and taken it down because the points that I was going to make have been made. So
okay, just making sure. Yeah,
thank you.
Just making sure. Okay, Councillor Howe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I ask, this morning you let speakers be questioned, particularly obviously we have governors, heads of Tipton School, and we've also got Devon County Council here. I would like very much if you would allow them to give the information they've been told by the Environment Agency as to the flood risk of the school as it stands. We've got an awful lot of people here making guesses without the qualifications, as I understand, unless some of these people have got qualifications in flood engineering and all the rest of it, as to what the EA has actually told Tipton School about its current site. They implied it this morning. I think we need to know explicitly what was said to that school and what threat that school is under, because that will make a material difference to, I believe, a lot of councillors' minds.
Okay. In the future, I would like to allow questions to be put to the speakers and applicants and objectors. Now, in this instance, I notice on the chat that Lewis Carr has the information that we were asking questions about. So can I invite him as an exception this time to enlighten the committee, please?
Hi, can everybody hear me clearly?
Yes.
Good. There are a number of problems. The danger of life that was warning that was put onto Tipton School was done before 2017. It was put on when the Metcombe Brook wasn't operating correctly. As far as I'm aware, that warning from the Environment Agency hasn't been lifted since the Metcombe Brook has been worked upon. And I agree that there is still a risk of flooding there. There's a message in the chat that, yes, I am speaking from an against perspective, but yes, correct. There is a message in the chat saying that these new flood defences put in 2017 haven't been tested, and they haven't been thoroughly tested. I totally agree. But we have the example of February from last year to sort of set against it. Now, in that February, we had the wettest February on record, or the wettest month on record, or whatever it was. We had a lot of rain, and during that time, the lowest part of Cadhay Lane, where the brook goes underneath it, the Thorn Farm Brook goes underneath it, that piece of road flooded, and it was flooded for a number of days because of the rain. It was, for some of the days it was passable, and for other days it was only passable in tractor. There was significant flash flooding down Barrack Road. It was washing over people's boots, and it was causing significant danger to the pupils of King's School who were trying to get home, and it was made a real mess of the road in terms of the amount of debris. And anytime there is any heavy rain at the moment, then the road gets covered in debris, particularly around the main crossroads between Barrack Road, Cadhay Lane, and whatever the road is that goes up to the new King's Reach development. So all of those things have happened, and in that time, there hasn't been a flooding incident at Tipton. Okay, now that is not perfect. That is not a perfect test. However, it does show it goes some way to show that some of the work that has been done at Tipton has been successful to a certain extent, and the extent of flooding around the area that we're looking to move it to is still also a significant risk. Now, if you go and build over some of the soakaways, which help to slow the water down when there is a significant rain event around us, if you go and build 150 houses on it, that water has to go somewhere, but it goes somewhere faster as well. So these flash floods will occur more readily. And there has been no consideration on the downstream effects of what's being proposed. So that water will go down through the middle of another housing estate that's been established for a long time in the Thorn Farm Way area, before going past a large, the industrial estate at the bottom of the road before it drops into the River Otter.
I'm sorry, could I interrupt with these deputations? This isn't quite what you were asking of Mr. Carr.
No, I agree. Right. I think we've got the message about the flooding question that we were asking with the Metcombe Brook, and of course the unusual event of 2008, which I remember well. Could I then invite one of the supporters to comment on just the flooding, please? just to make sure everything's fair.
I think you need either John Williams or Colin to speak, please.
Whichever one.
I'm happy to speak on behalf of the school. Obviously, the report was done at cost to actually show that there is a risk of life, and future modelling also showed it was only going to increase due to the environment changes that we're all aware of. The Metcombe Brook, the changes at the end were done because we had the Environment Agency and people involved. And yes, since then, I will say we haven't been flooded. But those were only ever, and in 2019, it was quite clearly stated that that is only on lower order flood events. And as such, this August, I was actually at Fennerton when Fennerton was flooding, and I rang Tipton, and there it was only lightish rain, and there wasn't any significant flooding. We are living on a wing and a prayer that the epicentre of floods is not in the Tipton catchment. Just because Ottery floods, that doesn't mean that the actual epicentre of the amount of rainfall is over Tipton. I don't know if you can see the picture, but that is what flooding on the site looks like. It is actually the whole place. And if you can see the school, that black line is about an inch below going into the full school. It has been in the school, but only into the cupboards since 2008, the lower cupboards. But it has only been on several occasions about an inch going in.
I think we can't have any extraneous evidence put before the committee.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Shaw. Okay, well, thank you for that. Now let me see if there are any more speakers. Mike Howe, Councillor Mike Howe.
Yeah, I suppose where I'm getting to, my worry is the kids. And I believe we're not have full information at present in front of us. Listening to what has just been said, trying to get the information from the school very accurately, very articulately put, but I would like to see the letters and a reinforcement statement from the EA through Devon County Council on the current risk to Tipton School. And as such, I ask for a deferment of this application until we have that accurate information that we can then work on. I would hate to think us have an extreme weather event and us dithering, sitting there, or even worse, saying no, puts lives at risk. And it can put lives at risk, as has been shown in many other communities when extreme weather events happen. When you have a school under threat, I think we need to take it seriously. And as such, we need that information from the EA before any decision is made. So I ask for deferment. And obviously, if the proposal to refuse is refused, I'm more than happy to put a deferment in place. Thank you.
Councillor Howe, the Environment Agency say the applicant may overcome our objection by submitting additional information to satisfy the concerns raised within this letter. Please reconsult us on any additional or revised information submitted. So the applicant has had their chance, I have to say you proposed a deferment. That's an amendment. Is there
Madam Chair, can I just correct you first?
Yeah.
The EA's comments are on the current application in front of us. They are not regarding the current state of affairs at Tipton School.
Should we be debating that now?
And I do think the committee needs the full facts in front of them.
Madam Chairman, could I suggest it? Councillor Howe has asked for a deferment. Has he got a seconder? If he has it, we can move on.
I will second a deferment. Yes. Can I speak?
You can.
Yes. What I wanted to point out, in actual fact, I have looked back the records, and although I totally agree that February was the wettest February we've had in a long time, the actual rainfall was spread over a longer period and not a deluge like what causes flooding at times.
Thank you. Right. We have an amendment that we defer this application. Can we take a vote on that, please?
Could we just check? I have deferral for further information from the Environment Agency on the flood risk to the school, primary school at Tipton St John. Is that all the information that members would seek at this point?
Yes, I totally agree with that. I seconded it.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
that's all we need. Is that?
Well, that's for the proposer and seconder to agree, I think.
Yes, they just have. Therefore, members, when your name is called, please would you indicate whether you support the deferral, whether you're against the deferral, or whether you wish to abstain from the vote.
Thank you. Councillor Bloxham.
Against the deferral.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Against the deferral.
Councillor Coleman.
Against deferral.
Councillor Davey.
Against.
Councillor De Sarum.
Support the deferral.
Councillor Gazzard.
Support.
Councillor Howe.
Support.
Councillor Key.
Support.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Against.
Councillor Pook.
Against.
Councillor Pratt.
Against.
Councillor Skinner.
Against.
Councillor Whibley.
Against, on the grounds this isn't about Tipton.
Councillor Woodward.
Against.
Councillor Ragg.
Against.
Thank you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 for against the motion to defer. So that motion has fallen.
Thank you. Now we have Councillor Chamberlain wants to speak.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll try and keep it brief. I don't speak that often, but on this I feel I really need to. I've sat and listened to this intently. If we look at this application, it's an application for these houses. And in amongst that, there is the opportunity for a relocation of the school, a school that currently has issues where it currently is. But this application, as I sit and listen to it, has become more and more about the school than it has about the actual main planning application and the houses going in, which are outside of our policies. Therefore, I'm struggling. I am really struggling with this application. And I think we need to take this application on the merit that it's here on, which is the housing, and the fact that it is outside of our local plan, our neighbourhood plans that were put forward by our residents and the communities that we worked with. And then if an application comes forward in the future for the school, which I really hope it does, then we will support it in the right place at the right time. Sitting here listening to people saying about the risks of life of children, I think is absolutely terrible. And I really feel for them. But that illness cannot be put on us. The schools come from Devon County Council. Lobbying needs to be done to them about a new school and where it can go, or help with a defence system if that's what's needed there, better improvements to the school where it is, not lobbying on a housing application with East Devon District Council. Is this application right if we take the school away? Would we support it? No. It's against our neighbourhood plans and it's against our local plans. That's what we as officers are here to do. And I am sorry, but we are going round and round in circles. An application needs to come forward at a different time for the school, and we can make note of the issues that are going on with that school now and address them outside of this meeting. But we could sit here for a very long time going round and round in circles. The point of the fact is, this is a planning application on housing in an area that we have deemed not suitable under our local plan and neighbourhood plans. Therefore, we should not be accepting it going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Now I'm going to
Chairman, could I just ask Mr. Rose a question?
Yes.
Very quickly. Mr. Rose?
Yes.
If this went to appeal, how would there be any comeback?
Well, it would be for the applicant to decide whether they want to go to appeal, as I think I hope came across in the presentation I gave. This, and as members are reflecting here, this is I find, well, you know, the decision here is between the benefits from the scheme, which are, you know, the new school, the need to relocate, the affordable housing that's being proposed, those economic benefits, against the harm. And there is certainly a case that can be made there in terms of the harm that's being put forward by members. And if members feel that that harm in terms of, you know, the countryside location, the houses, the visual impact outweighs those benefits from the school, then yes, there is a case certainly there that can be made on appeal, or can be made to defend that.
Thank you. So, Chairman, could we have a recorded vote, please?
Yes, we can. I'll put it to members whether they want a recorded vote. Will you raise your blue hand if you're in favour of recorded vote, please? Wendy, are you counting?
Yeah, well, I would say the majority is for a recorded vote.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's quite difficult with the blue hands. It would have been better with yes and no.
Yeah. Okay, well, should we do yes and no then? If you want a recorded vote, press green tick yes. If not, red cross no.
I've only got one no at the moment. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Right, then we will let Jeff Pratt come back as he's the ward member. Can you keep it short, please, Councillor Pratt? Councillor Pratt?
Yes, sorry.
Come on.
So do you want me to put out the proposal again? Is that what you're saying?
No, you don't need to do that. We'll just move to the proposal and we'll move to the vote. That becomes the substantive motion now.
Well, I vote to in favour of the proposal to refuse.
We'll take the vote. Thank you.
Chair.
Mrs. Shaw, can you sum up, please?
Could we just go to Chris Rose just to clarify? We've had the strategies and the policy against which the members feel that the application is, but perhaps Mr. Rose could put a bit more meat on the bones as to which elements he has drawn out of the representations of members earlier in the debate.
Yeah. Mr. Rose.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so what I've drawn out is that due to the countryside location of the housing scheme and the school being in conflict with the allocation, due to the harmful visual impacts, so that's wider visual impacts across Ottery and the visual impact from the access from the roundabout, plus the proposal not providing the 50% affordable housing, that harm outweighs the benefits of the proposal, and that therefore the proposal is contrary to local plan policies, which will be S7, S24, S30, Strategic 34 and Policy D1, and also to those neighbourhood plan policies, and I think MP1 and 25 in particular.
Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Shaw.
Is that accepted by the mover, Councillor Pratt, and the seconder,
Yes.
Councillor Skinner?
Yes, it is, Chair and Mrs. Shaw. Yes.
Thank you very much. Therefore, we will go to the vote. When your name is called, please would you indicate whether you are in support of the motion to refuse for those reasons, against the motion to refuse, or whether you're abstaining from the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bloxham.
Support the motion to refuse.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Support the motion to refuse.
Councillor Coleman.
Support the motion to refuse.
Councillor Davey.
Support the motion to refuse.
Councillor Tasaram.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to say that I've understood the needs of the school. So when I cast my vote, I want it to be clear that I've understood there's an issue with the school. However, I would like to say that I support the motion to refuse based on the issue of the fact that we are refusing a housing application. But I wanted to make it clear that I have, got issues knowing about the issues of the school. So that's what I wanted to put on the record, please. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Gazzard.
Refusal.
So are you against the refusal?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Howe.
Sorry, I think you got that wrong, Councillor Gazzard. If you said refusal, I think you mean you support refusal, not against refusal.
No, I mean against refusal. Sorry.
No.
Okay. I'll move on. Councillor Howe.
Abstain.
Councillor Key.
Against refusal.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Support refusal.
Councillor Pook.
Support refusal.
Councillor Pratt.
Support refusal.
Councillor Skinner.
Support refusal.
Councillor Whibley.
Support refusal.
Councillor Woodward.
Support refusal.
Councillor Ragg.
Abstain.
Thank you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in support, 2 against, and 2 abstentions. That motion to refuse has been carried.
Thank you very much, Wendy. I've lost my other screen now. Can you bear with me while I get it back? And thank you to everybody for their contributions to that debate. It was a tough one, and it's one that I was very, very concerned about. Right, just going back in now. Right, then we come to item 10, and this is Pooh Cottage Holiday Site, Bear Lane, Budley, Salterton, page 129, application number 200995, and it's a variation. This one did go to delegations, but I asked for it to go forward to committee because I was slightly concerned about it. Well, as was the vice chairman. So we have the agent Malcolm Gigg from ARA Architects and the ward members to speak on this, Councillor Bent and Wright. So, Chris, can you present your report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so this is an application to vary condition 2 of the 2019 consent to allow occupation of 14 caravans for the whole year round. So these are touring caravans on the site edged in red, and this wider site here is the wider campsite. So, and as the Chair has said, this was referred to committee because of the parish council concerns, and their concerns about allowing all year round use of the site, permanent occupancy of the caravans if they're allowed there to be there for a year. They had highway safety concerns because the access to the site is very narrow with few passing spaces, and visual impact on the AONB from having the caravans on site year round. So this is the site. The next item on the agenda is for a site down here for a very similar proposal. So you get your bearings, and the access, as I say, is off the narrow lane which comes down here. So you can start seeing the aerial from the site. This application relates to these units. The next application relates to those, and this is the site, as you can see. So used for storage of caravans at the moment, and you can see that there's some screening provided by surrounding trees, but there are gaps in that, which I will mention. So there's a current restriction on the occupation of the caravans on this site, so that they can only be occupied between the 15th of March and the 31st of October in any calendar year. But it can be used for storage outside of that time, as you can see from these photos. So it's an established site, but obviously they're wanting intensification of the use to allow this area to be used for the caravan occupation for holidaymakers all year round, which following coronavirus is becoming more and more common with people not going abroad. And the site has got a good range of facilities that people need to be able to stay on the site. In terms of local plan policy, E19 permits extensions to sites in designated landscapes. And there's no policy restriction now in terms of, and many years ago, it used to be that we would have conditions that would restrict the timescale that you could use on camping and caravan sites. There's no policy about that now. We're under a different policy regime. And as I say, there's pressure now or support for opening up caravan sites year round, particularly given the fact that you can't necessarily go abroad because of coronavirus. We can also, or we are proposing here, a condition to prevent permanent occupancy. So the caravans that are there could only be used for holiday accommodation and couldn't be occupied permanently, which was the concern of the parish council. In terms of the visual impact, it is a sensitive location, but it's next to existing pitches, as the aerial showed. There is storage permitted on this site already between October and March, so there is already some visual impact. But we are proposing a condition to plant the boundaries of the site, see for the trees here, to ensure that it's screened a bit better from outside of the site, given that when the caravans are there, they're generally white and more visible. But that condition should ensure that there's planting to those gaps. With regard to highway safety, there's no concerns from Devon County as the highway authority. The site's consented for storage, so they'll be coming and going anyway at this time of year. As I say, and the movements on Bear Lane, so the access to the site, whilst I understand the parish council concerns, the movements here, there's already movements for storage, and the movements would be a lot less than you would get in the summer months when it's considered to be acceptable. So, subject to conditions preventing the permanent occupancy and to secure the more boundary treatment, the proposal complies with the local plan and is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. We have the agent, Malcolm Gigg. Is he here?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Excellent. Does my time start?
Yes, please do. Yeah,
Okay.
3 minutes.
Okay.
You know the routine.
I do indeed. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to talk before you today. We've worked very closely with the planning team to prepare and submit an application that would be suitable and be supported by the team, and are pleased that the application is recommended for approval. The proposals are to extend the existing opening times of the site for occupation by tourists on a short-term basis only, this having an associated tourist benefit to the surrounding area, following tourists to remain and spend in local pubs, shops and restaurants in East Devon area. We understand that the Parish Council have objected to the grounds that the extension to the opening times for the park will effectively allow for all year round residential use. However, as the officer's report clearly shows, this will not be the case, and the use of the park will be restricted under the site licence to short-term holiday tourism use only. The Otter Valley Association have also objected on the grounds of highways access. However, the Highways Authority have advised that they have no objection and are satisfied with the proposed additional opening times and that these will have a minimal effect on traffic in the area. The application is outlined well in the officer's executive summary and overall report, clearly showing that the proposals do not introduce any new use of the site and that there are no policy objections to the proposals, and further states that the proposals would meet the criteria of current policy. We as a practice work on holiday accommodation and parks all over the south of England and can confirm that this type of extension of opening times is encouraged by both the government and local authorities throughout the country as a way of increasing tourism revenues and meeting the current new trend and demand for short breaks. Over the years, the design of construction of caravans has enabled that they are warm and more insulated than times past. And this ensures that the holidaymakers can stay longer in the year and enjoy short breaks throughout the year at different times. The model for holidays has evolved over the years and has turned to more short breaks throughout the year rather than one large holiday per year. This requiring the holiday industry to change and evolve with the changing trends. This application will enable the park to open later in the year and allow for the current demand for short breaks. In conclusion, I would ask that you today support the officer's recommendation for this application and support a local business that is trying to keep up with the changing marketplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gigg. Now we have the ward members. Councillor Alan Dent, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think I'll take that long. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the officer's report, which I think is very clear and concise. Now, the points raised: variation of condition 2 of planning application 19/1202 already allows for the occupation of 14 caravans during the summer season, and then for that same area of the site to be used for winter storage for the same number of caravans. We're looking at it on the screen. The Poo Cottage caravan site is a popular and well-managed enterprise within our local tourist economy. The attractiveness of holiday parks has increased enormously with the onset of coronavirus, and this application is in response to the increased demand for people to stay in accommodation such as this during the winter months. I also note that condition 3 prevents caravans being occupied as a permanent home, and this was the main concern of the Parish Council. It's important to note there is already a management logging system in place which records the movement and occupation of caravans at all times during the year. Condition 4 also requires additional planting on the western boundary of the site, below the pitches you can see in front of you. As this specific site already has permission for winter storage of caravans, there won't be any additional adverse effect to the amenity value of the AOMB. And finally, in addition, I'd like to say it's pleasing to note that at last DCC Highways have finally recognised that access to the site is acceptable and that this application wouldn't significantly intensify traffic movements in Bear Lane, which is the approach lane. I support this planning application, this planning variation, which will provide a more flexible offering to potential holidaymakers, as well as being a boost to our local tourist economy. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Dent. Councillor Tom Wright.
Thank you, Chair. You'll be pleased to know I don't propose to report
and repeat what Alan has just so eloquently put before you. I totally support him. We have visited this site to look at the proposed area. It's a very well managed site, very well and discreetly run, and it will be an asset to not just to the town, but to people from away who want to come and enjoy our wonderful countryside when it's quieter. So I totally support the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, now we have first speaker, Councillor Joe Whibley.
Oh yeah, I'll be brief. It seems to me that the conditions suggested are pretty reasonable. Planting a boundary will stop the view in and out. I think really importantly, the economy sort of in this area relies on too greatly on the summer and what happens then. If we can encourage things that that spread that out across the year, that's great. And to that end, the issue with traffic, I can't see how that can be an issue here, because in the winter it's never going to be as busy as it is in the summer. So I can't really see an issue with traffic. I've been to the site on numerous occasions over the years. I'd like to recommend approval.
So you're proposing approval. Is there a seconder, please?
I'll second it.
Is that Councillor Gazzard?
Pook.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pook, you like to speak?
Yes, I'd like to support this. I see there's no issues there, except I feel that condition 3 is a bit sort of non-specific, unless it's referring to a more specific clause which relates to the rest of the site. And rather than just not be occupied as a person's sole residence or main place of residence, I'd rather see some sort of time limits in there, something along the lines of 30 days in any 6-month period. So, it definitely was used for holiday purposes, and I think 30 days in a 6-month period or a 4-month period is quite reasonable. But just something a bit more specific in recommendation 3 or condition 3.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzard.
No, I was just going to second, Chair.
Thank you. So we have a proposer and a seconder in Councillor Pook. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chair. Just one thing to ask. Policy E19, I think this may be applicable to this, but it states that if you extend the site, the renewable energy production is asked for. And I'm just wondering, I can't see any electric hookups here, but if they are going to install electricity, because in the winter caravans are freezing cold, if they're going to put electricity in there, would there be a condition, asking through you, Chair, to Mr. Rose, could we condition that they have some form of renewable energy on site? Thank you.
That's E19 paragraph 6. Mr. Rose, could you advise on that? Could we condition that?
If we were dealing with an extension to the site, so we've got a site that's already there. So if we were dealing with an extension to that and providing more pictures, I think we would be justified in doing that. I think the difference here is that we've got a site that's already there. And what we're doing is talking about when the caravans can be provided on site. So if they were to extend further, that's what the policy is saying, but I don't think so in this case. And whilst I'm speaking, just in response to Councillor Pook's comment on condition 3, I think it's adequate enough. I mean, it is clear that the caravans can only be used for holiday accommodation and that they have to keep a register of those names so we can check. It's pretty similar to conditions that we put on most of these sites. So I think that's adequate to ensure the protection we need.
Thank you.
Chair, could I just ask, it's Councillor Pook.
Yeah.
Could I just ask Mr. Rose then? So someone if someone says I'm on holiday here and they've been there for 6 months, so they spend the winter there or something, is that permitted then, or could they spend 364 days a year?
The way we check them out and the way we keep the register if they have got another permanent residence, then they can only be there for a short period of time. Once they start staying there for those 6 months, it starts becoming their main place of occupancy.
Well, my argument is this short period of time. It hasn't got any quantification. Why? What is wrong with actually putting a quantifying that short period? So then everyone's perfectly, and everyone knows exactly what they can do and what they can't do. There's no sort of grey areas.
No, I wouldn't. If you feel that it's required or it would be beneficial or necessary to have a condition there to say that it can only be used for, whatever you felt was reasonable, 30 continuous days, whatever it is, by the same person, then you're entitled to do that.
Well, that's the sort of condition I would like to see applied, something specific, and I'd like maybe sort of defer that to an agreement with the officers. What is unless you've got some specifics you can actually bring forward right now, agree with the chairman and hopefully with me, since I brought it up, rather than sort of start debating 20 days, 40 days right now.
I think
if members want that, I'm happy, and I'm sure we can agree some wording between us and the chair, and
maybe the ward members as well. I don't think it would be appropriate to have a ward member or a member from another ward there. One of the concerns of both the vice chairman and myself was, how would it be checked that it is not used as a permanent all year round living accommodation site? That's one of the reasons, that's the main reason it came to committee. So anyway, moving on, Kathy McLaughlin's still got her hand up.
Apologies, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Woodward.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just support Councillor Pook. It was just something that was on my mind. Could we not have delegate to the ward members and the officers a period of time within which there's a maximum with any given period? I don't think we need to discuss that now, but I think it should be delegated to a...
We can condition that, can we
yes.
not? Yeah. Councillor Davey?
Yes, thank you. That echoes something I was going to raise as well, because I wanted to query whether holiday accommodation actually has some kind of legal definition. Although it clearly states in condition 3 that it shall not be occupied as a person's sole or main place of residence, I felt that legally that was a little woolly and could be argued over. People could spend 11 months of the year in a caravan, be letting their house out, and then go somewhere else for a month and come back again. So I feel as though we ought to have a time limit on the amount of time that people can actually be in the caravans. Apart from that, I'm totally happy to support this, because I feel that you're quite right, the holiday market is changing. The impact on traffic movement, I think, is fairly minimal, and since we're talking about winter lets, that's likely to be when the roads are less busy in this area anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Wright, you want to come back?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you very much. I used to be a caravanner, and I knew, so I'm a bit worried about being too prescriptive in time limits. I knew some fellow caravanners who husband and wife were school teachers, and they used to spend the entire school holidays, some 6 weeks at a time, in their caravan. So I think we've got to be very careful about being too prescriptive to inhibit people who want to do something like that, have a holiday home for 6 weeks for the summer holidays. And I think being too prescriptive could actually cause difficulties which we don't intend. That's all I wanted to say. But yeah. I think we could discuss that with the officers and the operators of the site.
I would agree with that, and I was also thinking be a great place to recuperate after an illness, and how long does that take? Yeah. So, Councillor Skinner.
It just a minor thing, really, Chair, is that when you suggested that this would take place between the officers and the ward members, I assume you meant between the officers, you as chairman, your vice chairman, and the ward members. because it certainly needs the vice chairman and vice chairman. I'm assuming that's what you meant, and it's just a slip of words. But when you start saying these things and people are voting, it needs to be the chairman, vice chairman, and the ward members in conjunction with the officers.
Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Dent, you'd like to come back.
Just a quick one to say I agree with everything that's been said there, and it would give us, if you involve us, we can talk with the owners of the site to see what they too think would be a sensible limit as well. So we could agree with them and the officers of a sensible time limit, whether it's 45 days or 60 days, whatever, you know, rather than just 30, because as you rightly pointed out, that's a very short period of time, but we could make it longer by agreement.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Howe.
It's just a technicality, really, and I have no problem whatever committee wants to do on this. But obviously, we're talking about one site. I imagine, though, if another site comes up with a similar proposal, accepting that no two applications are the same conditions we would be recommending applying to all sites throughout East Devon if they came forward. I use that word carefully because we can't retrospectively impose conditions. So I'm not nervous at all. I trust fully the ward members concerned and the chair and the vice chair, but it is mindful the condition you're recommending needs to be consistent across conditions for future applications across the district. Not just pick one separately, if you get my meaning.
Yeah, I certainly understand that. And I think that that would come up when we review the local plan.
Yeah, but you're doing this outside of the local plan review, don't forget.
Yes, we're doing that now. But I think when we review the local plan, we can look at it then and have an across the district strategy. Okay, right, and Councillor Key looks to be the last speaker.
Yeah, just very quickly, Chairman, that the next application, in actual fact, is for the same thing.
Right.
Yeah, where I'm coming from, Councillor Key.
Yeah, I guess that, Mike.
Thank you. Okay. Right. We've had a proposer and the seconder. Shirley Shaw will sum up.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just check? Councillor Pook made the recommendation to get the delegate to the chair, ward member and officers. However, Councillor Wibley, who proposed, hasn't agreed that amendment. And whilst they're considering agreeing that amendment, do they wish to incorporate the vice chair as suggested by Councillor Skinner?
I would be happy with that, yeah, with both of those.
Thank you.
Same with me.
Thank you. Therefore, members, you have before you a recommendation in two parts again. That is to adopt the appropriate assessment as attached to the report and to approve with conditions as listed, with the amendment to condition 3 to be delegated to the chair, vice chair, ward members and development control officers to determine the maximum number of days permitted. If you would, when your name is called, please indicate whether you're in support of the motion to approve, against the motion to approve, or whether you're abstaining from the vote. Thank you.
You?
Councillor Block. Sorry. Shall I begin, Chair?
Approve.
Thank you. Councillor Chamberlain.
Support.
Thank you. Councillor Coleman has left the meeting, so I'll move on to Councillor Davey.
Support.
Councillor Desaran.
Support motion to approve.
Councillor Gazzard.
Support.
Councillor Howe.
Support.
Councillor Key.
Support.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Support.
Councillor Pook.
Support.
Councillor Pratt.
Support.
Councillor Skinner.
Support.
Councillor Wibley.
Support.
Councillor Woodward.
Support.
Councillor Ragg.
Support.
Thank you. The motion to approve has been carried.
Thank you.
Right. Oh. Now we move to the next application, which is on page 137, 200996 variation, Pooh Cottage, Holiday Park, Budley Salterton. Mr. Rose. Or is it Mr. Gigg? Is he still there?
I am still here.
It's me
I've
first.
lost my script. I'm sorry.
It is Chris first.
Would you like to start, Mr. Gigg?
It should be.
I think it's Chris first.
Oh, it's Chris first. Yeah, it's all right. I've lost my screen again. Sorry. Okay.
While you find it, I'll go ahead. I'll be quite quick.
Carry on.
Very similar to the application you just dealt with, which was on the site, the land in blue there. This is the land in red. So again, they want to use the site all year round for caravan use. Exactly the same issues as before in terms of support from highway safety. I suppose the one highways at DCC, the one difference is that this site isn't authorised all year round for storage, but it is restricted between March and October. But again, the same issues apply: suitable access, the traffic won't be as much as in the summer, some screening to the boundaries to reduce the impact. So from that point of view, subject to those conditions again, and I would recommend the change to condition on this one to reflect what we've the decision just made on the previous application. And subject to that, we're also recommending approval of this site. You can see it is wider, but it will have the same benefits as the other site. And as you can see, this site, I believe, has got electrical hookups and all of the stuff already in place on the site. So we're recommending approval, but I would recommend a change to that corresponding condition.
Thank you. Right, Mr. Gigg.
Thank you. I won't go through the same speech again as I did before. It's for the same client, it's the same park, and as Chris has said, it's for the same situation. Nothing changes. From the discussions that you're talking about, because we as a practice work on parks all over the country, a 60 consecutive day return is normal. I'll just say that out loud and I'll leave you to make the decision. Other than that, I'd be happy for you to move forward to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dent.
Same thing. I'm not going through the speech again. I support absolutely as before with the same conditions that we applied before, with the period of time to allow for occupation to be decided by the group of people that we've agreed. So with that condition, I support.
Thank you. And Councillor Wright.
Ditto, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Now we have the Councillor Skinner.
Could I just offer, Madam Chair, is that the same two proposer and seconder put their best foot forward if we dash on, as it's more or less exactly the same as the last one, and keep it the same, if they're willing.
Yeah. Agree from Jeff Pook.
Okay.
Yeah, same here.
Agree with the seconder. Okay. Joe Whibley, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I agree with that. So yeah, I will propose it again.
Thank you. Right. Do you want to sum up, Mrs. Shaw?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, members, again, you have a two-part recommendation to this matter, which is to adopt the appropriate assessment as attached to the report, to approve subject to the conditions listed, with the delegation to the Chair, Vice Chair and officers to determine the maximum number of days permitted under condition 3. If you'd please indicate when your name is called whether you support the motion to approve, whether you're against the motion to approve, or whether you are abstaining. Thank you.
Councillor Bloxham.
Support the motion to approve.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Support the motion to approve.
Councillor Davey.
Support.
Councillor Desaram.
Support the motion to approve.
Councillor Gazzard.
Support.
Councillor Howe.
Support.
Councillor Key.
Support approval.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Support.
Councillor Pook.
Support.
Councillor Pratt.
Support.
Councillor Skinner.
Support.
Councillor Whibley.
Support.
Councillor Woodward.
Support.
Councillor Ragg.
Support.
Thank you. The motion to approve has been carried.
Thank you. And now we're nearly at the end. Item 12, application 200918, full to the Cedars, Exmouth Road, Collerton, Raleigh, page 144. And we just have the ward members to speak on this. So, Mr. Rose, can you present your report, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this is an application for conversion of a roof space to existing, to create a two-bed flat and with a new rear dormer. It's contrary to the view of the ward member. There's two flats in the building at present. I'll show you the photo, and they're with vacant roof space. You can see the location here. We're quite near the church, bus stop to the front of the site, village site, shop adjoining. There's a stream that runs around the boundary that you can see there. And we are in the AONB. And as I say, we've got existing floor plans here, two flats and a void in the roof. These are the existing elevations to the front and the rear and the sides. And this is the existing layout. So you've got a bus shelter at the front, you've got parking here, and then the gardens to flats 1 and 2. And we're proposed to use the roof space to create this this 2-bedroom unit, access from the lower floors, and then you can see the rear dormer that's proposed as part of the scheme, and again the side elevation of that with the access to the upper floors through the existing flats. And this is the layout. So each flat gets one space to the front of the site, and each space gets a dedicated garden area. So this is the unit at the moment. You can see the adjoining property, the bus stop, and the parking area. Again, more the unit, so you can see how much the dormer will be visible from the public domain. You'll catch the glimpse of it there. And these are the views to the rear of the site. So this is the application site where the dormer is proposed. This is a driveway up to adjoining residential property. So you can see that the building looks out mainly over landscaped and planting in this garage area. So there's not considered to be any harm to amenity. And this is the property to the left as you look at it, the building from the front, not a private amenity area. And again, you'll see the extent of the dormer window that you'll be able to view. And that's the brook to the side of the site. So it's not in a built-up area boundary. The site is in the countryside, but policy H3 of the local plan does support the subdivision of existing buildings in the countryside, as does paragraph 79 of the MPPF now. And there's also support in policy D8, which allows new residential dwellings where they're subject to a number of criteria. The first of those is that it doesn't harm the character of the area. I think there's existing parking and garden here that will be amended to allow the 3 flats. The dormer change will be noticeable in the street scene, but it's really only going to be glimpsed, and that's not considered to be harmful enough to justify a refusal. The second part of D8 is that the site needs to be close to a range of services and facilities, and the site is close to the shop, the pub. There's a bus service that runs along the front of the site. There's a church, the village hall, all within walking distance of the site. And key here as well is a couple of recent appeal decisions we've had in this area in Collerton Raleigh, where inspectors have said that those facilities that I've just mentioned are enough to allow some residential development and certainly conversions to take place. The other criteria relates to cycle and car parking. There's cycle parking proposed for the units. There's 2 spaces per flat at present, and that would go down to 1 parking space per flat. That's below the guidance in policy TC9 that would want 2 parking spaces per unit. And there is limited on-street parking here. But again, given the access to those facilities and the bus stop, I think it's going to be difficult to justify refusal on parking grounds. They provided refuse as part of the proposal. And then we come down to the design of the dormer. Is it a substantial extension? Is it okay in itself? And the views of officers are that we don't feel that a dormer window to the rear of here is going to cause harm to the street scene, and we don't think it would be classed as a substantial extension to this building, which would make the proposal contrary to policy D8. There were issues to do with flood risk to start the application, but they've been addressed by the EA through further modelling, so there's no concern about flood risk, and we're dealing with an upper floor unit here anyway. And in terms of living conditions, these windows to the side remain the same, so there won't be any overlooking, more harmful overlooking. The rear garden looks over a planted area and the garage, so I don't think there's going to be any loss of amenity to the residents to the rear. And in fact, most of the residents are sort of off to the rear and off to the right at quite a distance away, so there won't be any harm from the dormer window, and certainly no greater overlooking than already happens from the first floor at the rear of this unit. So in light of that, and given the support and given the facilities that are there, and given this will provide one small 2-bed unit, the recommendation is for approval with conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the ward members, Councillor Dent again.
Good. First thing, Chris, thank you, Chair. Chris, could you leave that photograph up? No, yep. That one, please, while I speak. Thank you. I've visited the site and I've got a number of concerns, and I still have a number of concerns. This development, proposed development, is sited within the centre of the village, which is actually designated open countryside, and is accessed to and from the busy Exmouth Road, which we can see in front of us here. And it has a bus shelter at the apex of the curve on the building frontage. The development within the roof space creates additional affordable accommodation in a sustainable location, which, whilst welcome, does intensify the use of the existing building. The proposed large dormer windows at the rear of the property are dominant and completely out of scale with this and other existing properties nearby. Occupants will overlook the gardens of adjacent neighbours, and this will create a considerable loss of privacy. And when I say that, the photographs we've seen of the overlooking or from the rear are taken from that big tree at the back behind the house, and do not take into account the immediate garden of Skylarks, which is the property on the right of the picture we're looking at, where that white car is parked, which has a small garden going out of the back and is immediately below the where the rear of the building and where the dormer windows will be. And I reckon there will be a considerable loss of privacy there. Now, at the front of the building, there's a proposal to park 3 vehicles in addition to, and you can see them, the 2 vehicles parked to the right of the vehicle. So there's a total of actually 5 vehicles being parked there. And the plans indicate that the road outside the flats is straight, and it looks like it is. It isn't. The road curves steadily round this bus shelter, which itself blocks the view towards oncoming traffic from the south, from the left-hand side of the picture as we look at it. And I've stood there, and it's a nightmare trying to dodge around that telegraph pole in front of the bus shelter as traffic's continuously streaming past. It's dangerous there. It's dangerous for pedestrians, and what I'm going to suggest is that it's dangerous for vehicles coming from the flat where they're parked onto that road, particularly as some of them, like we parked there, will come out going backwards. I know the highways have focused only on the space available for car parking. What's missing is an informed comment on cars accessing the road. The comments are based, it seems to me, on a paper reconnaissance and no actual site visits being made by highways. So in summary, I do believe this proposed conversion will materially affect the character of the surrounding area and will cause substantial loss of privacy to neighbours. The car parking arrangements are in total, when you get the 2 buildings together, for 5 cars, not 3. The 2 adjacent spaces for the Skylarks property next door have been conveniently omitted from the report. Access to the Exmouth Road has severely limited visibility, and this is exacerbated by that bus shelter. And this has been overlooked by county highways and deserves, in my view, much greater weight. Whilst affording affordable accommodation, this proposal in the loft of the Cedars flats is out of scale with existing properties nearby and is out of character with other properties in the village. I, therefore, am personally opposed to the recommendation to approve. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Dent. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. I totally support Councillor Dent's comments, who I think has described the issues very fully, and I won't bother you by repeating them. I think this development would have a detrimental impact on the houses to the back, with the overlooking from the dormer window, which if you took a picture from the other side from where the rear of that white car is, you probably better appreciate. So on those grounds, I totally support Councillor Dent and recommend refusal. Thank you.
Thank you. Have one blue hand so far, Councillor Skinner.
Thank you, Chairman. Chair, I should say. So I do apologise. Yeah, I hear. Well, I know this road very well, and yeah, it's. I absolutely understand the things that both the ward members have said, and particularly the coherent way in the way that Councillor Dent has put forward the comments. But for me, what we're looking at here is just raising the roof. I get the issues about overlooking and all those things, but it's about getting more capacity into a village in an affordable way. And I think Councillor Dent did point out the fact that, of course, yes, it does provide a home. So here we are again. We're up against balance between providing a home for people in a two-bed apartment and the negative impact that may have. When you look at the picture that Mr. Rose has just put up now, in actual fact, that there's quite a large area there for vehicles, whether or not they're going to the way they're going to enter the road. I would imagine that they would maneuver themselves in such a way that it would be driving out. So a car that would come in would be reversed back to the left-hand side and one thing, and they would work those things out. I'm along with the officers. I'm going to be. I think it's a good thing of getting some accommodation within the village environment that's going to be affordable. And I think I'm going to be supporting this application. I recommend for the approval of this application, and I so move.
So that's a proposal from you, Councillor Skinner?
Yes, to go with the officer's recommendation of approval.
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please?
Yeah, Pook.
Councillor Pook seconded. Would you like to speak on this, Councillor Pook?
Yes, please. I too know the road and drive down it, and I appreciate exactly what Councillor Dent and Councillor Wright are saying about the reversing out. But there's one extra car, and there's nothing to, there's other cars doing it already. I don't think that's a significant thing, and highways haven't said anything. The overlooking at the back, I find that's, I agree with the officers. So if you look from a planning point of view, impact on the street scene, minimal, because you aren't really seeing anything of the back, and the impact on the adjacent properties, minimal if anything at all. So I'm happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Pook. Councillor Desarum.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I wanted to ask Mr. Rose a very quick question. In your summary just now, did you say that the inspectors have said okay to similar conversions? So what you're effectively telling the committee is it would be hard to justify refusal on the basis that inspectors have approved similar sort of conversions. Am I right in assuming that's what you've indicated to us?
Yeah, that's correct. In terms of the principle of having additional residential accommodation in this part of the district, yes, that's what they're saying. But obviously, you still need to look at each application and the impact from the dormer and the parking, etc. But in principle, yes, those inspectors have said this is a suitable location for this type of development.
Right, thank you. Don't have any other speakers. Mrs. Shaw, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, members, again, a two-element recommendation. Firstly, adopt the appropriate assessment forming part of the report, and secondly, approve subject to the conditions as listed. If when your name is called, you would please indicate whether you are in support of the motion to approve, whether you're against the motion to approve, or whether you're abstaining from the vote. Thank you.
Councillor Bloxham.
Support the motion to approve.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Support the motion to approve.
Councillor Davey.
Support approval.
Councillor De Sarum.
In support of motion to approve.
Councillor Gazzard.
Support.
Councillor Howe.
Support.
Councillor Key.
Approve.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Support.
Councillor Pook.
Support.
Councillor Pratt.
Support.
Councillor Skinner.
Support.
Councillor Whibley.
Support.
Councillor Woodward.
Abstain.
Councillor Ragg.
Support the recommendation.
Thank you. So finally, the motion to approve has been carried.
Thank you. Right. That brings our meeting to an end, and I'd like to thank everyone, including any members of the public watching online, for taking part. Can I just remind all those present that the supporting officer will confirm when the meeting is no longer being recorded or going live. Until then, your comments will be live to the public. And could I also thank all members of the committee and all speakers and all officers for their contributions to some rather difficult topics today. You know, I think this is a good committee, and politics doesn't and shouldn't come into it at all. And it's good that we can work together on, you know, coming to decisions. And I think we probably reached the right ones today. But huge thanks to everybody. And see you all again tomorrow. And I won't say I can't wait.
See you tomorrow.